Chapter 327. Hearing his words, the three of them were stunned. Chu Ping'er said doubtfully, "That's not a good idea, right?" Guan Yu and Qin Feng exchanged glances. Based on their understanding of Yu Qianqiu, they believed that he would really do such a thing. I was just joking. How could I really do such a thing? Yu Qianqiu grinned as he comforted Chu Ping'er. Then he said to Guan Yu and Qin Feng, who were looking down on him, "Qin Feng, hurry up with the alchemy. If you need any spiritual herbs, look for Ping'er. Yunchang, let's go to the military camp to take a look. I haven't been there for a long time. I wonder how the training is going." It was indeed not good to talk about cheating in front of Chu Ping'er, as it would damage his glorious image. Yu Qianqiu found an excuse guiltily and wanted to leave. Guan Yu and Yu Qianqiu walked to the door together when they heard Qin Feng's voice behind them. "Sister-in-law, can I ask you for a favor?" The two of them stopped and turned around curiously, not knowing what Qin Feng wanted from Chu Ping'er. "What is it? Do you still need to ask me?" Chu Ping'er said in surprise. In her impression, Qin Feng had a lot of authority in Utopia. Moreover, Yu Qianqiu was here too. What matter couldn't he solve with Yu Qianqiu? Why did he have to look for her? Qin Feng nodded and bowed. "Sister-in-law, look at my subordinates. They are all men. I don't even have a woman who knows how to wash clothes. I, Qin Feng, am also a handsome man, but now I'm so sloppy." "Qin Feng, what do you mean? Do you want my wife to wash your clothes for you?" Yu Qianqiu immediately interrupted him. His face sank and he felt uneasy. Could it be that this scoundrel wants to hit on my woman because she's pretty? No. Boss, don't misunderstand." Qin Feng panicked. He waved his hands and said, "I just want to ask sister-in-law to transfer a female guard from Ethereal Palace to help me take care of my daily life." Yu Qianqiu and Guan Yu looked at each other suspiciously. The former rubbed his chin and walked back, looking at Qin Feng with interest. Qin Feng's eyes darted around, obviously feeling a little guilty. A strange smile hung on Yu Qianqiu's face as he said to Chu Ping'er, "Ping'er, pick an older and more experienced female guard from Ethereal Palace. Let her go with Qin Feng and take care of his daily life." Qin Feng hurriedly said, No need. It's better for those with experience to stay in the Misty Palace. Sister Bai and sister-in-law are in need of them. I found a female guard quite diligent recently. I'll take her." This time, Chu Ping'er and Guan Yu also noticed something. Yu Qianqiu said in a strange tone, "Since you have your eyes on someone, you should have said so earlier. What's her name? Just tell me and let her go with you." Qin Feng immediately showed a look of gratitude and said, "Her surname is Xiao. Her name is Xiao Wanqing." It turned out that Qin Feng had once seen a gloomy, beautiful woman in the Ethereal Palace. That woman was Xiao Wanqing. He did not know what was going on, but Qin Feng was stunned on the spot. It could be said that it was love at first sight. Hence, he began to secretly pay attention to Xiao Wanqing. "Xiao Wanqing?" Yu Qianqiu muttered. His expression became a little strange. In his mind, the smiling lady who always called out Yu Qianqiu appeared. He had almost forgotten about this lady. When he came back to his senses, Yu Qianqiu sized Qin Feng up. He thought to himself, no wonder this fellow is usually sloppy, comparable to Guan Weiwu. Why does he look so different today? Turns out he tidied up and prepared for a blind date. Damn. Chu Ping'er saw that there was something wrong with him and asked, "You know Xiao Wanqing?" Yu Qianqiu sighed and said, "So she is also a disciple of Fuxian Island. We used to be friends. Ping'er, call her over." Chu Ping'er nodded obediently and left. "Ah, boss is still the best. Thank you, boss." Qin Feng nodded and bowed again. "That's nothing. When Xiao Wanqing gets here, I'll warn her to serve you well. If she dares to have any thoughts about you because of her vanity, or if she interferes with your work, I'll destroy her in body and soul." After saying that, Yu Qianqiu's face sank. He opened his hand and a clump of cyan flames shot out, wreaking havoc. The temperature of the room instantly rose to a frightening level. Thankfully, he was quick to retract the cyan flames. Even so, the two people at the side could feel the power that made their hearts palpitate. Qin Feng let out a strange cry. He was a little dumbfounded. Guan Yu, who was at the side, smiled. He stroked his long beard and turned to the side. "Of course, if you like her." Yu Qianqiu was seriously considering. Qin Feng continued, "If I like her, what will you do to her?" Yu Qianqiu turned his head and said, "Fei Yin, if you like her, what else can I say? This boss will naturally help you. However, I don't think you will like her either. I still have to warn her." No. Boss, please be merciful. I like her, alright?" "Like who?" "Xiao Wanqing." "I can't hear you clearly. Speak louder." I like Xiao Wanqing. Qin Feng roared anxiously. He was not usually so stupid. Well, it made men stupid too. In the end, Yu Qianzhou's voice was even louder than his. He shouted, Qin Feng, you bastard. Don't play tricks in front of me in the future. You are still too inexperienced. If you make me angry, I will make you a bachelor for the rest of your life. Qin Feng was stunned. Although Yu Qianzhou's expression was ferocious as he glared at him, his tone was calm. Isn't it just liking a woman? What's the big deal? If you like her, then you like her. Who will fight with you? Do you really have to beat around the bush with me? Don't you know that my time is precious? Chu Ping-er led them in with a beaming face. It seemed like all women had the hobby of being matchmakers. Xiao Wanqing bowed to the few people in the room. Qin Feng stood there with a contorted expression. His eyebrows were a little asymmetrical. He was blissful. Yu Qianzhou waved his hand, indicating that there was no need for her to be so polite. He smiled and said, Xiao Wanqing, long time no see. Boss, what instructions do you have for me? Xiao Wanqing said respectfully. The way she addressed him had changed. The radiant smile that Yu Qianzhou was once familiar with was gone as well. There seemed to be a hint of resentment. Yu Qianzhou did not beat around the bush. He pointed at Qin Feng and said, This is Director Qin, who is in charge of our Utopia's logistics refinement. I believe you know him. From today onwards, you will be transferred to Director Chen's subordinate. You will be in charge of Director Chen's personal life. This is a very important mission. You have to take good care of Director Chen and let him manage the logistics refinement in a good mood. Director Chen has quite a good impression of you. He personally chose you. Director Chen treats you. At this point he could not continue. Why did he feel like he was forcing her to marry him? Wasn't that too much? By the side, Chu Ping-er stared at her man with widened eyes. She did not know what to feel. Guan Yu's expression twitched as he turned his head to the side. On the other hand, Qin Feng was beaming. He felt that his boss was really loyal. What he said was very professional and profound. But why did he stop? Yu Qianzhou touched his nose awkwardly and said, About that, Director Chen will tell you the details after you go with him. I won't say anything else. Xiao Wanqing did not agree or say no. She only stared straight at Yu Qianzhou. After a long time she suddenly said, Boss, you mean you want me to be Director Chen's woman in the future? She was smart and guessed it immediately. No. You two can develop yourselves. Of course, I'd be happy to see the two of you as a couple. After Yu Qianzhou said this, he almost blushed. This was no different from forcing a girl to be a prostitute. Qin Feng rubbed his hands happily on the side. Yu Qianzhou glanced at him. *CK. You're having fun. He wanted to kick him on the spot. He actually made his boss do such a disgusting thing. He was too inhumane. Bastard. Yu Qianzhou, if you want me to be Director Chen's woman, I'll do it. Wanqing has let you down in the past. Now, I'll listen to everything you say. Wanqing only needs one word from you. Will you do it or not? Xiao Wanqing's sudden words could be said to be heart-wrenching. She directly changed the way she addressed him to his name. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. 3 pairs of eyes stared at Yu Qianzhou. Chu Pinger's eyes were filled with suspicion. Guan Yu pinched off a few of his long hairs and Qin Feng's eyes were almost pleading as he looked at him, afraid that he would say, I don't want to do it. It felt like he was entrusting his lifelong happiness to his boss. Yu Qianzhou's heartstrings trembled. He secretly lamented, Xiao Wanqing, I know you have a crush on me. If you knew this would happen, why did you do it in the first place? Otherwise, you and I might be fated. Unfortunately, I can't tolerate sand in my eyes. Seeing Qin Feng's anxious gaze, Yu Qianzhou made up his mind. He clenched his teeth and said, I can see that Director Qin likes you very much. Then you should be his woman. After saying that, he immediately said to Guan Yu, Yuncheng, let's go to the barracks to take a look. After saying that, he walked out first. He couldn't stand Chu Pinger's inquiring gaze. It was better to hide first. When he thought of Farong and Wu Lixue outside, he felt a headache. What if these 3 women met each other? Guan Yu came out and quickly caught up to him. He asked, Boss, what's with Xiao Wanqing saying that she let you down in the past? Actually, it's nothing. She's just thinking too much. I don't think she let me down in any way. Yu Qianzhou sighed. Back then I had a few friends on Fuxian Island. Xiao Wanqing was one of them. I invited them to go with me but they refused. So I forcefully detained them. Your subordinate, Gu Qingyun, knows about this. He's one of the parties involved. She said she let me down. Maybe it's because she rejected me. Oh. Guan Yu's voice was filled with doubt. He was thinking of finding a chance to ask Gu Qingyun. The two of them had already left Misty Palace. Yu Qianqiu didn't want to linger on this topic. He coughed and said, Yunchang, do you have a woman that you like? If you need me to be your matchmaker, tell me. I'll definitely support you. Unfortunately, you won't agree to the woman I want. Guan Yu's mind was filled with the image of a woman in a white robe with a gentle face that could topple cities. He snorted and said, ask you to be my matchmaker? No need. I don't want to meet a second Xiao Wanqing. If there's really someone I like, I'll go ask Sister Bai directly. Boss, you don't have to get involved. That's good. That's good. I'm busy now. I'm afraid I don't have time. Yu Qianqiu smiled awkwardly. Chapter 328. Boss, wait up. The two of them had just left Ethereal Palace and were about to ride their swords to the army camp when they heard someone shouting. Turning around, they saw Qin Feng running out excitedly, followed by Chu Ping'er and Xiao Wanqing. Boss, I want to ask you something. Qin Feng chuckled. Yu Qianqiu found him an eyesore no matter how he looked at him. What? You want a woman? Go find one yourself, don't look for me. No, I'm not that. I'm not that greedy. Qin Feng almost said the wrong thing in a moment of desperation. Yu Qianqiu glared at him. Spit it out. Qin Feng was in a good mood. No matter how much Yu Qianqiu scolded him, he wouldn't be unhappy. He nodded and bowed. Didn't you say that the limit-breaking pill is different from the real and fake pills? I want Xiao Wanqing to raise her cultivation first. That won't be a problem, right? He just had a girlfriend and now he wanted to please her. What a good man. Yo, since when are you so proactive? I want a F***CK. Yu Qianqiu suddenly slapped his forehead and pointed at Qin Feng. It's all your fault. I almost forgot to tell you the most important thing. When Chu Ping'er walked over, he said to them, remember, this limit-breaking pill doesn't have any side effects. The only flaw is that after the effects, the person will be unable to move for a month. If you want to raise your cultivation again, you'll have to wait for a month before you can take the second limit-breaking pill. How can this be? Qin Feng exclaimed. Guan Yu and Chu Ping also frowned. Only Xiao Wanqing, who was standing quietly at the side, didn't know what they were talking about. Yu Qianqiu nodded and said, this is the difference between the limit-breaking pill and the true and pseudo pills. The poison from the true and pseudo pills will accumulate, but the poison from the limit-breaking pill will be automatically consumed by the body. The body will be stiff for a month to neutralize the poison. If you want to take the limit-breaking pill, remember to arrange the things at hand first. Also, it's not a good feeling to be awake but unable to move for a month. This is not meditation, you have to be mentally prepared. The few of them didn't expect that there was such a powerful relationship, and their expressions changed. Imagine being awake but unable to move your body for an entire month. Sure enough, there was a price to pay for improving one's cultivation. It was not an easy thing to do. Chu Ping'er gently walked to Yu Qianqiu's side, bit her lips and said, a month of pain can be exchanged for an increase in cultivation. I'm a little worried about you going out alone. Why don't you go out a month later? It's always good to increase your cultivation. I can take care of you here. It's still the best to have a wife and a child by my side. Yu Qianqiu smiled bitterly and said, I still have a lot of things to do and some things have to be settled quickly. How can I not go out for a month? We'll talk about it in the future. Alright Ping'er, if big sister comes out, tell her about what happened today so that she can be prepared. Got it. Chu Ping'er looked at Yu Qianqiu and nodded. Her man was always on the move and he might face danger often. She felt her heart ache for him. When Xiao Wanqing heard the tender words of the two men, she felt a little worried. Don't spread the news about the limit-breaking pill to anyone else. Just as Yu Qianqiu finished speaking, he heard the faint sounds of fighting from afar. He knew that the troops were training, so he turned to Guan Yu and said, let's go take a look. The long swords on their backs shot out at the same time, and the two of them stepped on their swords and flew into the sky. The three people in front of the ethereal palace watched them leave. In a hilly area with undulating mountains, the two of them stood on their swords and looked down. 6 regiments of troops were fighting in 6 different places, and it was hard to tell who had the upper hand. Yu Qianqiu observed carefully and found that most of the people from the 6th Bureau who were training were wearing black suits. What was strange was that there were dozens of people in white suits in the middle of the 6 regiments. Yu Qianqiu asked curiously, what's the meaning of this? Guan Yu observed the situation below and said, today's training is to fight with numbers and to fight with the weak against the strong. Those in white suits are the nascent soul experts of each regiment, and they are to be used as hypothetical enemies. The moment he said that, Yu Qianqiu's interest was piqued. The people below seemed to be in a mess, but under the command of their commander, they advanced and retreated in a measured manner. Be it attacking or defending, they were able to exert their collective strength to the maximum. As soon as the white-clothed members made their move, the black-clothed members with higher cultivation would immediately come forward to block the attack, while the other black-clothed members would seize the opportunity to launch a group attack. Even those with weaker cultivation would be able to release a flying sword to confuse the enemy. After a series of fierce attacks, the white-clothed members would be forced to defend themselves. Yu Qianzhou nodded repeatedly and said, "Fighting alone is what hooligans do. This is more like a military battle. You guys finally put in some effort and didn't slack off. I was really afraid that you guys would just eat and drink well every day and just laze around." Guan Yu smiled bitterly and said, "Slack off? You've already pointed at my nose and scolded me. I've even dismissed 2 regiments for you. Who dares to slack off? Knowing your mistakes and being able to correct them, knowing your shame will lead to bravery. Not bad, not bad." Yu Qianzhou nodded repeatedly and pointed below. "This is exactly the kind of training that is close to actual combat. When necessary, we can allow for casualties. I'd rather have 1,000 elite soldiers than 8,000 mediocre ones. You can pass on my words and tell them directly that I'm the one who said it. In short, all training revolves around winning battles. I don't care what methods you guys use. In short, when I bring out my troops, they must be invincible. Alright, how often do you guys conduct this kind of actual combat training? Ever since you scolded us that time, the troops have never stopped their actual combat training. Small-scale lightning battles, large-scale chaotic battles, will take some time out every day to conduct it. Sometimes it's during the day, sometimes it's at night. Everyone is constantly trying to find more effective ways to attack and defend." Guan Yu said. "Very good." Yu Qianzhou nodded. He thought to himself, this troop that fights every day shouldn't have a problem beating those sects that raise cats. After thinking for a while, he frowned and said, "Don't be too tense. Every month, give them 3 days of free rest." "Got it." Guan Yu suddenly asked again, "Are you really going to let them take the purple limit-breaking pill? Can't the white one work?" He didn't seem to be worried that Yu Qianzhou wouldn't be able to get enough spirit stones. It seemed that he was very confident in his boss's ability to make money. Yu Qianzhou turned around and looked at him. He knew that he was still worried about the side effects of the purple pill. He waved his hand and pointed to the ground. "Yunchang, according to our previous method, how long do you think it would take for those Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators to reach the tribulation passing stage, even if we provide them with enough spirit stones and elixirs to increase their cultivation? At least a few decades, at most a few centuries. But the white limit-breaking pill can increase their cultivation by 1 level in a month. Even if they're all in the early stage of Foundation Establishment Realm, they can all reach the early stage of tribulation passing stage in a year." Guan Yu still wanted to fight for his subordinates. "You mean to say that we should stop the troops from training for a year? Then we can take them in stages. At most, we just have to wait a few more years." "No. The troops can't stop training for half a month. I won't be using them for long." Yu Qianzhou decisively refused. He waved his hand and shouted, "Do you know how many spirit stones it will take for all of them to reach the tribulation passing stage? Let me tell you, including their daily expenses, they will need at least 20 billion high-grade spirit stones. Do you think I can raise that much money in a short period of time? Do you want me to take it slow and wait for a few more years? A few years plus a few years, how many years is that? Also, do you really think that everyone here can reach the soul formation realm? Let me tell you, that's impossible. Including you and me, maybe no one will have that opportunity. Do you think that I'm harming them? Then tell me, if they don't meet us, how many of them will have the opportunity to reach the tribulation passing stage? Not to mention the tribulation passing stage, I'm afraid that half of them can't even reach the nascent soul stage." Guan Yu was silent. He was awakened by the 20 billion high-grade spirit stones. He knew that he was being too emotional. Yu Qianzhou's words were reasonable. In fact, there were some things that Yu Qianzhou couldn't tell him. If he was alone in the cultivation world, he wouldn't need to spend so much effort and he could live a good life. But his parents were old. Because of him, they were brought to this world that didn't belong to them. They didn't fit in with the people here. The outside world was where they should stay. Therefore, he had the responsibility and obligation to send them back safely so that they could enjoy their old age. He could wait a few more years, but he was afraid that his parents couldn't. Every time he came back, he would be too embarrassed to meet them. For this reason, he had to control both the cultivation world and the imperial power of the secular world. He had to create a good living environment for the elderly. In fact, it wasn't just that. He had some ideals in his heart. The pillar of the state, General Shi Wenguang's prestige in the Western Army was irreplaceable. Moreover, he wasn't young anymore. If he waited too long, who knew what would happen? The cultivation world was in chaos. If it calmed down in a few years, it would be even more difficult. Also, Bai Changchun would go to that *T Eastern Holy Land in a few years. He was afraid that the demon domain wouldn't be at ease without the old man guarding it. There wasn't enough time. Chapter 329. After a small argument, the two of them stopped in the air and fell silent. Yu Qianqiu suddenly sighed. Yunchang, do you think that I'm only doing this for myself and not for everyone else? Guan Yu shook his head. No, you're right. I'm just being emotional. It's good that you understand. There are some things you need to know. Yu Qianqiu looked down and said slowly, only when my goal is achieved can I create better conditions for everyone to live better. If I lose the ability to lead them, or if I don't care about them and don't restrain them, and throw them out into the outside world, they won't be able to do anything. Do you believe me? Guan Yu thought for a while and nodded. Indeed, even though this group of people was making a big commotion, if they didn't have Yu Qianqiu's strong support, once they were thrown out into the outside world, they wouldn't even be enough for the righteous and demonic Tao to have a feast. Whether it was supporting Immortal Island that occupied the top spot in the cultivation world or 10,000 demons that dominated the demonic Tao, if any one of them made a move, it would be hard for these people to resist. As Yu Qianqiu said, as long as he was doing well, everyone would be better off. This was the truth. I understand. Guan Yu let out a sigh and suddenly felt enlightened. He asked, what are you going to do? Yu Qianqiu frowned. For now, I'm going to follow what I said before. First, help the old members break through to the early stage of tribulation passing. They put in more effort and deserve better treatment. It's worth it to spend more time on them. For them, I'll just give them the white limit breaking pill. For the others, I'll give them according to their positions and cultivation. See how fast I gather spirit stones. Take it slowly from top to bottom. Noted. Guan Yu nodded. He looked down and asked, do you want to go down and take a look? The battle below was getting more and more intense. Yu Qianqiu took a look and said, there's no need. Let's go to Dongguisu's place and take a look. The two of them rode their swords and left. There was an open space that covered an area of 100 acres, and there were nearly 100 independent courtyards, which almost formed a small town. This was the place for those who already had a spouse to live in. There was also a group of older people led by Dongguisu who lived here. A few hundred meters away from the town was a plain. Figures were busy working in the fields. The thriving and lush greenery showed that the crops here were growing well. A 2-meter-wide and 1,000-meter-long stone road was paved in the middle of the plain. The construction was quite large, but for Utopia, which had nearly 10,000 cultivators, it was only a matter of a day. The two of them put away their swords and landed in the middle of the road. Yu Qianqiu immediately saw the vegetables by the side of the road. Pumpkins, peppers, eggplants, beans, and so on were piled up in rows on both sides of the road. Yu Qianqiu squatted down and picked up some green peppers. He laughed and said, Yunchang, looks like you've had a great harvest. Look, these are all pollution-free green products. Guan Yu was stunned. He understood the first part but did not understand the second part. He did not know what Yu Qianqiu meant. It seemed like he was ignorant. He could only smile and say, the crops here don't have as many pests as outside, so they're naturally growing well. Ta-ta-ta. A majestic horse galloped over from afar. The two of them looked over and saw that it was Guan Yu's Red Rabbit. A young man on the horse shouted, is that Big Brother? Red Rabbit galloped over and suddenly stopped. It lifted its front hooves and stood up on its hind legs. The young man on the horse jumped down. It was Yu Wuchio. Big Brother. Yu Wuchio called out shyly after getting off the horse. Yu Qianqiu looked at him and nodded with a smile. This little guy was a little older and more sensible. He was not as arrogant as before. He asked, why did you come here? Father and mother were bored, so we came here to help. Yu Wuchio replied. As they were talking, Dongguisu and his wife came to the road with Yu Changgui and his wife. They walked towards them. Obviously they had noticed the two of them. The two brothers hurriedly walked over and greeted, Father, Mother? Guan Yu also came over and greeted. In fact, he was older than Yu Changgui and his wife, but he looked younger. This greeting was for Yu Qianqiu's sake. Yu Changgui hurriedly supported Guan Yu and said, Mr. Guan is too polite. Speaking of which, the first time Yu Changgui saw Guan Yu, he was subdued by his demeanor. That appearance was simply too mighty and extraordinary. Especially when he commanded thousands of men and horses and gave orders, it was the demeanor of a scholarly general. This caused Yu Qianqiu to have a stomach full of complaints. I'm clearly the boss here. Yu Qianqiu was sizing up his parents who were dressed like farmers and women. Dong Wusu and his wife greeted him in Guanyu and said, "Greetings, leader head instructor Guan." Yu Qianqiu didn't want his parents to see people who were older than them being respectful to him, so he felt that he couldn't stay here any longer. Unexpectedly, he was stopped by Mistress Xue and asked a few questions. After he answered perfunctorily, he asked about Dong Wusu and his wife's recent situation, and then he found an excuse to run away with Guanyu. He originally came here to understand more about the situation, but he didn't expect to run into his parents, so he could only run away in advance. This child has grown up. Even his mother is not willing to be close to him. Xue Ernyang looked at the two streaks of light in the sky and was a little unhappy. Tears welled up in her eyes again. Yu Changue frowned and said, "What nonsense are you talking about? The child has grown up and has his own things to do. Do you think he will let you tie him up with a belt every day?" "Mother, I heard from others that our eldest brother is very powerful." Yu Wuqiu looked at the streaks of light in admiration. Dong Wusu also laughed and said, "Madam, you don't know, but the leader is the #1 figure in our cultivation world. Who doesn't know Yu Qianqiu?" His wife also comforted him. "Yes. Madam, the leader is a man who does great things. He has a lot of things to do. No matter how powerful he is still my son. How dare he not recognize me as his mother?" Xue Ernyang felt very wronged and wiped away her tears. Yu Changre and Yu Wuqiu's faces twitched again. The men in this family, including Yu Qianqiu, were most afraid of Xue Ernyang wiping away her tears, so Yu Qianqiu ran away first. At this time, a violent explosion suddenly came from the distant hilly area, attracting everyone's attention. Dong Wusu looked into the distance and sighed, "If only this old man was a few decades younger. They are a group of strong people. The leader is really generous." Yu Wuqiu smacked his lips and his eyes lit up. "It must be Chief Instructor Guan's men training again. If only I could be like my eldest brother and the others. Sigh. But sister-in-law said it's dangerous and won't let me go see." Then he turned to Xue Ernyang and smiled apologetically, "Mother, why don't you talk to sister-in-law? She listens to you the most. If you ask her, she will definitely agree. You're even beating around the bush when asking her to give birth to a grandson for me. Which part of her listens to me? She doesn't even respect me, her mother-in-law. That's right. She can fly around in the sky like a fairy. Why would she respect a mortal like me?" Tears of grievance flowed down Mistress Xue's face again. Yu Wuqiu stuck out his tongue and quickly shut his mouth. "Nonsense. She treats you well every day. When did she ever take you seriously? Do you still have a mouth?" Yu Changue shouted. Another explosion came from afar, interrupting his words. He frowned deeply. This place was isolated from the outside world, but his son's men were training here all day long. What was his son trying to do? Could it be that there was an emperor in the cultivation world? He suspected that his son was trying to rebel. In his mind, this was the only possibility, so he was always worried. But he had guessed it. Chapter 330. The first house in Utopia was the bamboo house built by Bai Suzhen. Now that it had been renovated, there were 3 people living there. Bai Suzhen's uncle, Xue Qingkong, and 2 of Yu Qianqiu's disciples, Hong Qi and Zhang Peng. Guan Yu and Xue Qingkong had been chased away by a certain someone to take a walk in the bamboo forest. The bamboo forest was quiet, and the ground was covered with bamboo leaves. Occasionally some of them would fall. This was one of the forbidden areas in Utopia. Without permission no one was allowed to enter. Yu Qianqiu, who was sitting in the bamboo pavilion, felt a little emotional. He thought back to the days when he was alone with Bai Suzhen. At that time there were only the 2 of them here, and Bai Suzhen would play the zither every day. Now things were the same, but people had changed. The past could not be kept, and there were many more things to worry about. Knowing that his 2 disciples had broken through to the foundation-building realm, Yu Qianqiu was very happy. Zhang Peng's innate spiritual root was indeed powerful. Although he was a late cultivator, he had still caught up to Hong Qi. After a moment of happiness he asked, "What techniques have you been cultivating?" The 2 disciples looked at each other respectfully. Hong Qi bowed and said, "Master, after junior brother and I broke through to the foundation-building realm, we did not cultivate any techniques. Chief Instructor Guan said that you should be the one to teach us the techniques we should cultivate. No one else has the right to teach us any techniques." Now Hong Qi was already a young man. Although he was younger than Zhang Peng, he was the first to enter the sect, so he had the advantage of his senior brother. Yu Qianqiu nodded and smiled. He stood up and walked out of the bamboo pavilion. He paced around the courtyard, deep in thought. The two disciples, one tall and one short, followed behind him quietly, not daring to disturb him. After some time, Yu Qianqiu took out 2 jade archives and copied a set of incantations on the spot. He turned around and handed them to Miao Yi and Miao Yi respectively, saying, "This is a set of sword incantations called the Guiyuan sword incantation. When cultivated to a high level, you can control 10,000 swords at the same time to subdue your enemies. After memorizing the technique, destroy the jade archives immediately. You are not to teach it to anyone without permission. Your disciples will remember." "Thank you, Master." The two of them took the jade archives excitedly. They had finally obtained the cultivation method they wanted to cultivate. Naturally, they were happy. Yu Qianqiu suddenly flicked his sleeve, and a group of cold lights flew out from his storage pouch. In the blink of an eye, they flew into the bamboo forest, moving as fast as lightning. Despite their speed, they didn't touch a single bamboo. The two of them were dazzled by this sight. After the cold lights scattered for a while, they all flew back with a shio-shio sound and inserted themselves in 2 rows on the left and right of the two of them. After some calculation, there were 10 on each side. Yu Qianqiu turned around and said with a smile, "What I used just now was the Guiyuan sword technique. Both of you can keep 10 of these 20 flying swords for your cultivation." After the two disciples thanked him, he said, "There is a tomb behind the bamboo house, and the person buried inside is also your patriarch. Although he didn't teach me anything, he guided me into the cultivation world. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here today. If there are weeds growing on my grave, you should be diligent in pulling them out. Take it as filial piety on behalf of your master. Your disciples will remember." The two of them bowed again. "Your master has many things on hand, and it's impossible for me to stay in Utopia every day. However, from today onwards, I will use my divine sense to contact the two of you from time to time. If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask me. There are many cultivation methods hidden in the military camp, and I've collected them all. When you have the time, you should go and take a look. It'll be beneficial for your cultivation. If you need anything, you can ask Instructor Guan to help you." After saying this, Yu Qianqiu smiled and said, "All right, I won't say much. Cultivate diligently, and I hope that one day, you'll be able to lend me a hand." He did not say much, nor did he give the two disciples a chance to bid farewell. He suddenly disappeared, causing Hong Qi and Zhang Peng to look at each other in dismay. Yu Qianqiu teleported to Guan Yu's side in the bamboo forest. He looked at Shui Qingkong, who was wandering in the distance, and said to Guan Yu, "Your subordinate, Gu Qingyun, is quite smart. There's no need for him to stay in the military camp anymore. Transfer him here as well. Let him consume the limit-breaking pill with my two disciples and help them improve their cultivation as soon as possible." "Got it." Guan Yu nodded. He was already used to his sudden appearance. As they spoke, they saw Yu Qianqiu slowly taking out a set of clothes to change into. In the blink of an eye, a servant in black clothes and a small hat appeared before him. He waved at him and disappeared. Guan Yu smiled bitterly. He really did not know what this guy was up to. In the small courtyard behind the National Pillar General's residence, as soon as Yu Qianqiu appeared, he saw Shi Xiaotian sitting cross-legged in the main hall. He was really diligent. Not wanting to startle him, Xiaoqin quietly walked out. With his current cultivation, he was much higher than Shi Xiaotian. If he did not want Shi Xiaotian to notice him, Shi Xiaotian would not be able to notice him. From the back garden to the front garden of the general's mansion, a group of busy servants once again saw the servant who was secretly spreading praises in the mansion and came and went freely. Yu Qianqiu was dressed like a servant. He ignored the other servants and swaggered on his own path, letting others secretly talk about him. However, a pregnant woman in front of him attracted his attention. She was holding her stomach with both hands and was being supported by another woman for a stroll. The pregnant woman was Bao Wanshi, and the one supporting her was Si Tuhui. The two women turned around slowly and happened to see the smiling Yu Qianqiu. The two women were startled. Yu Qianqiu quickly walked over and bowed, "Greetings to the two young madams." When he raised his head, he added softly, "Bao Wanshi, I haven't seen you for a while. How did your stomach get big because of Shi Yutian? I will definitely help you teach him a lesson the next time I see him." He swaggered away after saying this. Si Tuhui covered her mouth and chuckled. Bao Wanshi was ashamed and angry, but she did not dare to say anything. After leaving the general's residence, he bought a few sugarcane on the way to the back door of Wanhua Tower. After knocking on the door, a servant led him in. He swaggered to the small courtyard with ease. The sound of the zither coming from upstairs was a little messy. Yu Qianqiu was also a person who knew the zither. He immediately heard that something was wrong. Just as he was puzzled, the sound of the zither stopped. The enchantress of 100 Charms appeared at the window and looked at him with a smile. Master's wife. Yu Qianqiu smiled and bowed downstairs. His smile was a little awkward. He felt a little guilty every time he came. He did not know what he was worried about. When he went upstairs and pushed the door open, he saw the enchantress of 100 Charms sitting on a chair. She crossed her dazzling white legs and said in a sweet voice, "What a rare guest. I haven't seen you for a long time. Have you forgotten about me, Master's wife?" "How would I dare? How would I dare? Disciple is here to visit Master's wife." Yu Qianqiu smiled apologetically. "You bastard, where have you been all this time? I almost sent people to search the entire Wuxia Empire, but I did not see your shadow. You are really good at hiding. Tell me the truth. Where have you been hiding?" The enchantress of 100 Charms asked with a smile. However, the way she asked made people's imagination run wild. "Looking for me?" Yu Qianqiu was stunned. He had always been the one looking for her. This was the first time he heard that she took the initiative to look for him. He could not help but ask, "Master's wife, could it be that something happened?" The enchantress of 100 Charms and the smile on her face disappeared. She said seriously, "Something big might have happened." Chapter 331. What's wrong? Yu Qianqiu found a chair and sat down. A few months ago, 8 demonic sects were massacred. Did you do it? 100 Charm Demon Concubine asked. She knew he did it, but she still wanted to confirm it. Yu Qianqiu had asked her for information about the sects, so he naturally didn't plan on hiding it from her. He nodded and said, "I brought people to do it." "What's wrong? Did I mess things up?" 100 Charm Demon Concubine gave him a deep look and said, "You didn't do anything wrong. The 10,000 demons' plan to take over the Yin father and son was destroyed by you. 8 sects were massacred in a row, and the hero caused the entire demonic path to panic. Everyone was worried that they would be the 9th sect, so the entire demonic path put pressure on the 10,000 demons. No matter how strong the 10,000 demons were, they couldn't go against the demonic path. Even if they obtained the Yin father and son strength, they would lose even more. The 10,000 demons couldn't withstand the pressure and finally led the demonic path and righteous path to attack. The Yin father and son were in imminent danger, but who knew that someone would help them?" Hearing this, Yu Qianqiu relaxed. He didn't want the Yin father and son to be exterminated so quickly. His plan was that the Yin father and son's strength couldn't be exterminated, but they couldn't be exterminated. If the righteous path wanted to watch the demonic path attack, then he would think of a way to provoke them. On the other hand, if the demonic path didn't do anything, then he would provoke them, just like last time when he destroyed the 8 demonic sections. If the Yin father and son couldn't withstand it, then that wouldn't do. He would send out troops to help and drag the demonic path and righteous path down. It also wouldn't do if the Yin father and son were too strong. Then he would help the demonic path and righteous path suppress them. But the last possibility was a bit small. The Yin father and son's strength still didn't have the strength to win against the demonic path and righteous path. In short, whoever was lazy and didn't do anything, he would whip them in the back. And whichever side couldn't take it, he would help that side. He would do his best to make the war last as long as possible. Everyone would be in a deadlock like this. Once his strength had increased, he would come out to fish in troubled waters. Fuck. Is there anyone else who has the same plan as me? Damn it, this is too treacherous. Yu Qianqiu frowned. Who helped the Yin father and son? So you still don't know. The Allure Beauty shook her head. She frowned and slowly said, nearly 100 experts of the crossing tribulation stage suddenly appeared in the cultivation world. Among them, there are quite a few who are at the final stage of the crossing tribulation stage. The righteous and devil Dao had just attacked the island where the Yin father and son were hiding when this group of experts seemed to descend from the heavens, defeating their combined attack in one fell swoop. The strangest thing was that even though there were so many experts, no one recognized them. It was as if they had never appeared in the cultivation world of the Wuxia Empire. At that time, I even suspected that it was the people behind you. Cough cough. Yu Qianqiu coughed and awkwardly said, Master's wife, you are too imaginative. The Yin father and son wanted to skin me alive. Why would I help them? The Allure Beauty pondered and said, I also don't think so. While everyone was trying to guess the identity of those people, Qiu Weiyuan of the 10,000 demons suddenly remembered the identity of one of the experts at the final stage of the crossing tribulation stage. Yu Qianqiu narrowed his eyes and asked, Who are they? Qiu Weiyuan had traveled to the Dirong Empire outside of the Wuxia Empire in his early years. There is a famous imperial advisor in the Dirong Empire. It is said that his cultivation is very high. Qiu Weiyuan met him by chance. After so many years, he almost forgot about this person. Now, he recognized that the expert at the final stage of the crossing tribulation stage was that imperial advisor Dirong. The Allure Beauty said. Yu Qianqiu was surprised. So, the Yin father and son have colluded with the foreign cultivation world? That can't be right. Didn't the cultivation world of the various countries make an agreement that no one is allowed to trespass into the territories of other countries? Otherwise, the various countries will join forces to punish them. There was indeed such an agreement. If it was just the Dirong Empire, it would not be a big deal. However, because Qiu Weiyuan recognized the imperial preceptor, everyone discovered some clues from the clothes of the experts. They were wearing the clothes of foreign countries. These people were obviously from the allied forces of the various countries. Think about it, if the various countries all violated the agreement, then who would be afraid of the agreement? Then what's the use of this agreement? The Allure Beauty said. How could this be? Yu Qianqiu said absent-mindedly. He had not expected something like this to happen, making it difficult for him to carry out his plan. He had finally managed to obtain the limit-breaking pill and was just about to run out and act arrogantly. Unexpectedly, someone completely unrelated to him had come to join in the fun. Truly, the plan could not keep up with the unexpected. Yu Qianqiu sighed. Master's wife, why did those people come at this time? Do you know what their purpose is? We still don't know what they want, but the entire cultivation world of China is on alert. This is not a local fight, but an invasion by foreign enemies. The orthodox Tao and the devil Tao have put aside their prejudice and are discussing fervently. They are preparing to form an alliance to defend against the foreign enemies. At this point, the Allure Beauty stood up. Although her clothes were hot and seductive, she didn't look seductive at all. She looked out of the window and said in a sonorous voice, if a war really breaks out and the situation is disadvantageous to the cultivation world of China, the Enchanted Palace will no longer hide our power. We will do our best to defend against the foreign enemies together with the orthodox Tao and the devil Tao. Although I, the Allure Beauty, am a woman, I will not give up my duty. Yu Qianqiu looked at her and was stunned for a while. Then he slowly nodded. Yes. No matter how our brothers quarrel, it is still a matter of our own family. Even if the bones are broken, the tendons are still connected. Even if we break up the family, we will still have the same surname. Other people come to meddle. Their reasons are nice to hear, saying that they are helping someone, but they all have ulterior motives. Who knows what they are planning? Even if you use your butt to think, you can be sure that they are harming others to benefit themselves. That's right, Master's wife. Are there any movements from those people? After they made their move, they didn't make any movements. It was as if they were worried about something. If I didn't guess wrong? The Allure Beauty turned and looked at Yu Qianqiu. It could be because of you. Because of me? How is that possible? Yu Qianqiu was stunned. He stood up and waved his hands. Master's wife, I really have nothing to do with those people. If you don't believe me, I can swear to the heavens. I didn't say that it has something to do with you. It has something to do with the power behind you. The Allure Beauty explained. Think about it. When it comes to the matter of heroes, the Yin father and son know that they are fakes. But who are the real heroes? There is an unknown power hidden in the Chinese cultivation world. Since those outsiders have colluded with the Yin father and son, they must have found out the truth from the father and son's mouths. Sometimes, the power that is exposed is not scary. What is scary is the hidden and unknown power. Occasionally, it is ferocious, but it is hard to see clearly. This kind of power is often the most unsettling, making people not dare to act blindly without thinking. Yu Qianqiu rubbed his nose and smiled. Is the power behind me really as scary as Master's wife says? To be able to loot the Daluo sect's spirit stone mine without anyone knowing and destroy 8 demonic sects in a day. Not to mention, there is an expert at the final stage of the tribulation passing stage. Even if they are not scary, they are not weak. The temptress stared at him with burning eyes and said, Since you call me Master's wife, don't blame me for saying some harsh words. I don't care who's behind you. If the Wuxia cultivation world is in trouble, I won't ask you to pull them out to help, but you're not allowed to be enemies with the Wuxia cultivation world. Otherwise, don't blame me for not giving Hao Sansi face. Even if I can't kill you, I'll definitely reveal your background. Think about the consequences. Threatening me? Yu Qianqiu's mouth opened slightly. He was speechless. Chapter 332. Her slender legs, delicate white feet and crystal round toenails were well groomed. Her feet were almost flawless. The temptress was used to stepping on the smooth mahogany floor barefooted. Usually, no one would disturb her in the attic, so it was harmless for her to do so. However, her cheap disciple was a little fascinated by her. At the very least, Yu Qianqiu was currently staring at her jade-like feet. The temptress of 100 charms gently tugged at the red muslin that was trailing behind her thighs and silently covered her half-naked thighs. The red muslin also obscured her jade-like feet. What a beautiful and delicate pair of beautiful feet. They were born with them. Yu Qianqiu sighed in his heart. Usually, a woman with naturally flawless feet would be known as a beauty without looking at her face. On the other hand, if a woman had a beautiful face but mediocre feet, she would either look good with makeup or take good care of her body. Even worse, she would have gone for plastic surgery. True beauties usually had the same head and feet. A woman's appearance could be judged 90% by her feet. This was the experience he had gained from countless experiences in his previous life. With the red gauze blocked, Yu Qianqiu coughed and casually found a topic to cover up the awkwardness. He asked, "Master's wife, why did those people come? It can't be for no reason, right?" China is the birthplace of the world of cultivation. Most of those cultivators who were scattered in other countries were expelled because they violated the common commandments. After a long time, they gradually became famous in other countries. In the past, there were some who thought that they had achieved great cultivation and came back to seek revenge and cause trouble. However, our China's cultivation world is full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. How could we let them do as they pleased? They were either killed or driven back. However, this time I'm afraid they had planned it for a long time. Otherwise, cultivators from other countries wouldn't have come together. Speaking up to this point, the temptress asked, "Do you know why those people were expelled?" Yu Qianqiu shook his head and said, "I usually don't care about this and I've never heard anyone mention it. I don't know." The reason why they were banished was because they coveted the riches and splendor of the world and interfered excessively in the affairs of the secular world. The common commandment of the Wuxia cultivation world is not to interfere in worldly affairs at will. However, most of those who have been expelled refuse to mend their ways despite repeated admonitions. They are still the same in foreign countries. Not only do they confuse mortals and tell them that they are myths, but they also use the pretense of recruiting believers. They say that they are preaching the law, but in fact, it is for their own enjoyment. But because they were in other countries, no one cared about them. Who would have thought that they'd become so powerful that they'd want to attack the Chinese cultivation world? So, they're here for revenge? Yu Qianqiu asked. It shouldn't be revenge. Those people who were banished have probably all died long ago. The practice of banishing people who violated the commandments was something that had happened a long time ago. In the past, those who were banished would always come back to cause trouble. So now, people who were found to have violated the commandments were usually killed. If the people who came this time were related to those people from before, they would only be their disciples and grand-disciples. The biggest possibility is that they will return to China to fight for resources, 100 Charm Beauty said. What resources? Yu Qianqiu asked curiously. He thought to himself, if it's something good, I will also get my hands on it. China has a vast territory and a large population. For the cultivation sects, this is a resource. 100 Charm Beauty said, some people say that the Wuxia Empire has a treasure that was lost in the ancient times. They are here to find such a treasure. A treasure from the ancient times? What is it? Yu Qianqiu's eyes lit up again. He was very interested in treasures. I'm not sure. 100 Charm Beauty shook her head and said, I heard that it's a treasure that can make one a god. The ancient war broke out because of this treasure. It was too long ago, and I'm afraid there are only a few people who know the details. Could it be the star pearl that Bai Changchun mentioned? Yu Qianqiu thought to himself. The enchantress of 100 Charms frowned slightly and walked to the window with her bare feet. She looked a little worried. Yu Qianqiu never would have thought that this kind of woman would love her country to such a degree. It was rare for a woman to be like this, and he admired her from the bottom of his heart. His fantasies towards her lessened, and a sense of respect arose within him. He followed her to the window and comforted her. Master's wife, don't worry. It's just a group of tribulation passing stage cultivators. You said that the cultivation world of our Wuxia Empire is full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. They won't be able to cause any trouble. So, if it's just this, it won't be difficult to deal with them. The Fuxian Island and the 10,000 demons aren't weak either. I'm just afraid that they have more people. Now that both sides haven't made a move, Let's wait and see what happens in the future. What about you? 100 Charm Beauty had a trace of worry on her face. When she turned around, it turned into a charming smile and asked, "Little fox, you've been elusive for a long time. What are you doing? Are you up to something again? Can you tell me a little?" When he got closer, the beauty's body fragrance made him take a deep breath. Yu Qianqiu pretended to be careless and took a few steps back. He chuckled and said, "It seems like Master's wife is prejudiced against me. I've always been honest and dutiful. What can I do? It's just that Master is watching me tightly and it's hard for me to come out and walk around." Get lost. You're honest? Then there won't be any honest people in this world. 100 Charm Beauty suddenly said in surprise, "Why? You're still in contact with Guan Weiwu from the Fuxin Island. That means..." Master's wife misunderstood again. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and interrupted, "Since the Fuxin Island expelled me from the sect, they wouldn't put me in their eyes. I have nothing to do with Guan Weiwu. Master's wife, please don't associate me with him in the future." At the mention of Guan Weiwu, his face turned ugly. Back then, when he was questioned, he really wanted that master to speak up for him. But in the face of his almost begging gaze, Guan Weiwu remained silent, and on the spot, his heart was almost completely broken, making him feel cold and sad. From that moment on, he made up his mind that there was no longer any relationship between them. He seemed to be a strong person, but because of something that others might not care about, he was really hurt. Therefore he refused to associate him with Guan Weiwu. 100 Charm Beauty could see that he really couldn't have any relationship with Guan Weiwu. She chuckled and said, "It seems like I've said too much. But it's strange. Could it be that you've acknowledged a third master? What I'm doing is considered treason in the cultivation world, right?" He smiled non-committally, which could be considered as a disguised admission. The smile on 100 Charm Beauty's face twitched. Whether it was the righteous path or the demonic path, changing masters frequently was not something that was liked. No one could guarantee that they wouldn't accept disciples. Who would like their own disciples to acknowledge others as their master? Even if it was their own abandoned disciple. After a long period of time, everyone wouldn't have a good impression of such a person. In fact, everyone would despise such a person. Yu Qianqiu sneered and said, "Back then someone in the Wu clan scolded me as the scum of the cultivation world. I think Master's wife also feels that my actions are shameful. But it doesn't matter. I am a thick-skinned person. If Master's wife doesn't like it, you can say whatever you want. This reputation is indeed not good. You can say it to me and I naturally won't mind. But I advise you to not mention your master in front of others. It won't be beneficial for you to walk in the cultivation world in the future. After all, you have offended some people. In the past, when you acknowledged a second master in the supporting Immortal Island, everyone didn't say anything out of consideration for the supporting Immortal Island. But now that you don't have the protection of the supporting Immortal Island, and you acknowledged a third master, it is inevitable that someone will make things difficult for you. Therefore, if you can avoid mentioning your master, try your best not to mention it." 100 Charm Beauty's words were from the bottom of her heart. Some people that I have offended? Yu Qianqiu let out a cold snort, and spoke with a prideful expression. "My master's cultivation is exceedingly profound and unfathomable. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he is unrivaled in the world. Just based on them? They aren't even fit to carry my master's shoes, let alone know about an expert like my master." Such an arrogant tone instantly made the 100 Charm Beauty's eyes lit up. Unrivaled in the world? Kid, you can't casually wear this hat. Are you bragging? There might be many experts in the world, but no one dares to say that they are unrivaled in the world. I don't dare to say that I have seen all the experts in the cultivation world, but I have at least heard of the famous ones. Why don't you tell me your master's name? Let me see who is able to be crowned with the hat of unrivaled in the world. Since Yu Qianqiu had mentioned his master, he had a plan in his heart to reveal some information. Mainly, he wanted to ease her heart at this time. Secondly, he wanted to intimidate her and make her feel that he had a powerful background so that she wouldn't dare to act blindly without thinking. Otherwise, he was afraid that with her strong patriotism, she would contribute all her hidden forces to fight against foreign enemies at the slightest sign of trouble. Then how would he be able to grasp the situation of the cultivation world at any time? Moreover, this woman actually said words that revealed his background. This was clearly a threat. Didn't you want to use psychological methods to get information from me? Then let's see who is threatening who now. Chapter 333. Mistress, why do you have to know my master's name? Although my master has a high cultivation base, he is not well known in the cultivation world. Not many people know about him. Even if I told you, you would not have heard of him. There is really no need to tell me. Yu Qianqiu smiled faintly. In his heart he spat, Mistress doesn't know my master's name? What kind of logic is that? Why do I feel that saying this is so awkward? Damn it. He let old man Bai take advantage of him. He had 3 masters and a mistress. Talking about his master in front of his mistress was not a good match. The allure temptress glared at him and shouted, "Little fox, cut the crap. No matter how high your cultivation base is, can it be higher than the final phase of the god's punishment? Even if your master is a reclusive master, I don't believe that he has never been in the cultivation world. If he is as powerful as you say, how could he be unknown? I've been in charge of a sect for many years. As long as it's an expert that's still alive in this world, I'll be able to tell you 1, 2, 3 of them." Mistress, can I not say it? Just pretend that I am talking nonsense. Yu Qianqiu acted like he was in a dilemma. Yo, are you making fun of Mistress? The allure temptress smiled and walked closer. She seemed to be up to no good. Smiling, she said, "Little fox, today you have to tell me whether you want to or not. If you dare to lie to me, I will seal your cultivation and strip you naked. I will let the ladies of the 10,000 flower house keep you for 10 days to half a month and let you go after squeezing you dry." This mistress is so strong. Yu Qianqiu pushed his palms forward and said awkwardly, "Master's wife, please wait. How could disciple dare to deceive master's wife? It's truly because my master hasn't met an opponent that can defeat him since 2,000 years ago. He wanted to be defeated, yet he couldn't. In his loneliness he lived in seclusion until now. Think about it, how would master's wife know about him?" The temptress was stunned on the spot when she heard this. She blinked her eyes and said doubtfully, "Little fox, are you talking nonsense? Are you confused by the ladies of Myriad Flower Brothel, or did I hear it wrong? Are you saying that your master has lived for more than 2,000 years? Masteress." Yu Qianqiu let out a long cry and said with a bitter smile, "You didn't hear wrongly. My master is indeed more than 2,000 years old. Just like you said, there are many hidden dragons and crouching tigers in the cultivation world, but the so-called final stage of passing tribulation is really not a master. At least in the eyes of my master and the others, they are really not a master. More than 2,000 years old, more than 2,000 years old. What kind of cultivation can live for more than 2,000 years? Could it be the legendary soul formation stage?" The muttering 100 Charms Beauty's body suddenly shook, and her pretty face became somewhat pale as she thought of that impossible possibility. She bit her lips and looked at Yu Qianqiu in bewilderment. "Little fox, could it be that your master's cultivation has already reached the legendary soul formation stage?" Yu Qianqiu solemnly cupped his fist and said, "My master's cultivation has already reached the peak of the final stage of soul formation. For him, becoming an immortal is only a step away." His words were quite frightening. The allure temptress's alluring red lips were slightly open, and she was a bit dumbfounded. After a while she anxiously asked, "You just mentioned your master and the others. Could it be that there are more than one soul formation stage like your master?" Yu Qianqiu nodded and said, "Of course there are many, but at their cultivation level, almost all of them concentrate on cultivation and don't care about worldly affairs. That's why very few people in the cultivation world know about them." The expression on the allure temptress's face changed, and no one knew what she was thinking. After some thought she said, 2,000 years is not a short time, but it's not a long time either. With your master's cultivation level, he must not be a nobody 2,000 years ago. Why don't you tell me your master's name? Maybe I've seen your master's name in some ancient records. It's really not convenient to tell you my master's name, and besides... Yu Qianqiu shook his head and bitterly smiled. "Besides, my master really didn't leave any big name in the cultivation world 2,000 years ago. He has always been rather low-key." Ah! The allure enchantress suddenly laughed. She pointed at Yu Qianqiu and scolded, "You're really a little fox. I was almost fooled by you. Fortunately, I know that you're not telling the truth. You said that your master is invincible, and is at the soul formation stage, but you said he is at the peak of the soul formation stage. Even if what you said is true, you actually dare to say that there are many soul formation stage cultivators in this world? Do you think you can find a lot of soul formation stage cultivators in the market? You want to lie to me, but you don't even know how to prepare a draft. I asked you to tell me your master's name to test you, but you've always been secretive. Little fox, you really are not a good thing." Oh. Yu Qianqiu was completely speechless. He really couldn't understand. He had told a lot of lies, but some people believed him, but no one believed him when he told the truth. Who could he tell this to? I can't be too honest in the future. A smile gradually appeared on Yu Qianqiu's face, but it was the kind that looked at an idiot. He sneered and said, "In this world, the hearts of the people are higher than the sky. It's understandable that you don't want to be with ordinary people. Master's wife forced me, so I said it. Since you don't believe me, then forget it. Just pretend I never said it. But fortunately, a few people from a certain sect have seen it and know that I'm not lying." The Allure Beauty couldn't smile anymore and asked with a stiff expression, "Which sect have seen it?" Yu Qianqiu said indifferently, "Ma Jiugu of Supporting Immortal Island, together with 4 late-stage Tribulation Transcendence consecrators, as well as Dongfang Chang'ao and a group of elders, accidentally provoked a soul formation cultivator. In the end, they didn't even see the person's face, but they were all seriously injured by that person's divine sense. They were so scared that they fled in panic. Fortunately, that soul formation cultivator showed mercy. Otherwise, none of them would have been able to return to Supporting Immortal Island alive. This matter isn't a secret among the upper echelons of Supporting Immortal Island. Maybe the upper echelons of the top 3 sects also know some inside information, but they're just hiding it from the other sections." "Is what you said true?" The Allure Beauty cried out in surprise. Using divine sense to seriously injure 5 late-stage Tribulation Transcendence experts, this cultivation was a bit too terrifying. How could she not be shocked? With Master's ability to gather information, it shouldn't be difficult for you to investigate. He bowed and said, "Thank you, Master's wife, for informing me of the current situation in the cultivation world. Disciple still has important matters to attend to and will visit again in the future." He was about to leave. "Wait, I still have something to ask." The Allure Beauty stopped him and asked doubtfully, "This is something only the upper echelons of the top sects know about. How do you know?" She didn't know that when the incident happened, Yu Qianqiu was still on Supporting Immortal Island. Yu Qianqiu smiled and said, "It's a coincidence, the person who injured them was my master. If Master has no other questions, Disciple will take his leave." "Your master? Wait." The Allure Beauty stopped him again in surprise and put on a charming smile. She said, "I don't dare to provoke a soul formation cultivator, but it's not easy to meet a soul formation disciple, so I naturally have to ask for some advice. I want to see what peerless skills you've learned from a soul formation cultivator." *CK. Yu Qianqiu raised his eyebrows. Did this woman want to fall out with him? Before he could say what he wanted to say, he saw the Allure Beauty's figure flash, and the room was filled with her. She was wrapped in red gauze and surrounded him in all kinds of positions. Chapter 334. The reason why the Enchanted Illusion Palace was called the Enchanted Illusion Palace was that there was a set of famous phantom great technique in the cultivation world. It was said that when cultivated to the extreme, it could transform into thousands of real bodies, making it difficult to distinguish the real from the fake. It was a very unique set of magic arts. And as the current palace master of the Enchanted Illusion Palace, the phantom great techniques cultivation was naturally not weak. Hee-hee, charming laughter echoed in every corner of the room. The pink phantom was everywhere, flirtatious, sweet and charming, disturbing people's ears and eyes, making people feel as if they were falling into a gentle land. Yu Qianqiu's eyes slightly narrowed. In his slender eyes, there was a sharp killing intent. In front of him, there were hundreds of Enchanted Illusion Palace's phantoms, all smiling at him. He couldn't tell which one was the real Enchanted Illusion Palace's real body. "Master's wife, what do you mean?" Yu Qianqiu vigilantly looked around, his tone was a bit cold. "Little fox, I don't mean anything else. I just want to see what peerless skills you have learned." The phantoms kept disappearing and appearing, always maintaining 100. The strangest thing was that the hundreds of phantoms actually spoke at the same time, their voices coming from all directions, as if they were all the Enchanted Illusion Palace's real body. But it was impossible for there to be hundreds of people who looked exactly the same. There was only one real body and the rest were all phantoms. Yu Qianqiu carefully looked around. Although the Enchanted Illusion Palace said it lightly, he didn't dare to relax. If the other party had evil intentions, wouldn't he die unjustly? His divine sense immediately filled the whole room, which was the real body and which were the phantoms, he could easily find out. However, how could the phantom great technique be so easily seen through? Under his divine sense, he found that every phantom could resist the detection of his divine sense, making it impossible to distinguish the real from the fake. The hundreds of charming phantoms giggled and said, "Little fox, Do you really think my enchanted illusion palace's phantom great technique is a street performance? You actually used divine sense to detect? This palace's layers of phantoms will not let you easily see through the real body without the same or higher cultivation as this palace. Yu Qianqiu sneered, I don't care how many phantoms you have, but I don't feel safe right now. Mistress, if you don't stop, don't blame me for being impolite. I'll burn down your 10,000 flower house. At that time, let's see if you can create illusions in the fire. The allure enchantress couldn't laugh anymore. Yu Qianqiu had become famous after the battle outside the 100 Flowers Valley, and he had relied on the world-famous star flame fire technique. Although she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, the news she had received had confirmed the terrifying power of the monstrous flames. Even the Deluo sect leader's son had been killed, and the sect's elder Zhu Xianxian had to retreat. One could imagine how fierce this little fox's fire technique was. This secluded loft was made of pure wood, so how could it withstand such a fierce flame? The inside of the room was suddenly dyed a cyan color. She saw Yu Qianqiu raise a finger, and there was a cyan flame the size of a candle dancing on it. However, it was this small flame that turned everything in the room a demonic cyan color. If you don't stop, it seems that mistress plans on rebuilding the 10,000 flower house. Yu Qianqiu sneered, and that cyan flame instantly burst out with a heart-palpitating temperature. The vermilion paint on the furniture quickly melted, and the entire room was immediately filled with the smell of burning wood. If the temperature was just a bit higher, the entire building would be turned into a sea of fire. Cyan-colored flame. The allure enchantress's pupils shrank. There was actually a cyan-colored flame in this world. Could it be some kind of demonic flame? She had previously received news that Yu Qianqiu's fire technique could release a demonic red flame with an extremely high temperature, but this flame was a demonic cyan color. Although the color was different, she could feel the terrifying power contained in that cyan flame. The 100 phantoms in the room quickly merged into one, and the allure enchantress appeared in front of Yu Qianqiu with a face full of anger. She pointed her finger and shouted, "Little fox, you're crazy. If this fire starts, wouldn't my 10,000 flower house be exposed to the entire capital? When that time comes, how would I be able to hide here?" Yu Qianqiu was startled. Damn it. You're the one who wants to make a move, so do you think I'll just sit and wait for death? He cursed in his heart, but he had already retracted that cyan flame into his body. It seemed that this woman really wanted to exchange pointers. The high temperature that was emitted in the room actually followed the cyan flame and entered Yu Qianqiu's body. The room instantly recovered its coolness. The enchantress of 100 charms looked around. Seeing that there was no damage, she suddenly shouted again, "Today this old lady must exchange pointers with you. If you dare to use fire spells again or damage a table or chair, this old lady will swallow you alive." As she said that, the phantoms rose again, and the allure enchantresses appeared from all directions. They all stretched out their claws. She no longer said anything and attacked without any politeness. Yu Qianqiu almost fainted. This bitch's cultivation was originally higher than mine. Since it was a spar, she still restricted me from using fire techniques. How could you say that? The other party had already made a move, so he didn't have much time to think. Yu Qianqiu put his palms together and patted his chest. A blue wave rushed out, bringing with it a dense cold air. Hundreds of ice thorns shot out from the blue wave in an instant, and met the hundreds of allure enchantress's claws. Damn it. Fortunately, I've cultivated water techniques. You won't let me use fire, but I'll use water. There was no need to mention how depressed Yu Qianqiu was. If it wasn't for the fact that he still had some use for this 10,000 flower house, with his temper, he would have burned it down long ago. At this moment he couldn't tell which was the real body of the allure enchantresses, so he simply released a group of ice thorns to deal with them together. What is this? The allure enchantress jumped in fright. The ice thorns were smashed into pieces by her claws. The hundreds of phantoms once again merged into one, revealing the real body. However, the ice thorns that were attacking the other phantoms whistled through the air. It seemed that they were going to tear the house down. The allure enchantress shouted, "Stop!" Before she could finish, the surging water rushed over and drowned her. A bubble protected the allure enchantress. It was her protective aura, otherwise she would have taken a good bath. The hundreds of ice thorns seemed to have a telepathic connection. Just as they were about to pierce the house, they all flew back and returned to the blue wave. Yu Qianqiu didn't want to tear down her house, so he naturally wouldn't cause any damage. Moreover, this mistress had already warned him. Since she wasn't really going to fall out with him, it was better not to provoke this shrew. In an instant, the whole room was filled with water. All the furniture that could float in the room floated slowly in the water. If one looked from the outside, one could see that not a single drop of water seeped out of the house. The windows were sealed by a pool of water and no water flowed out. The Allure Enchantress who was inside the protective aura was extremely astonished. She looked left and right at this room that had already become a world of water. She really couldn't imagine how a person's body could release so much water. Looking at the world outside the window through the water, it was crystal clear and had a unique flavor. She didn't know if it was clean to use for bathing. Usually when women saw water, their thoughts were different from men's. Women thought about whether it was clean and whether they could bathe. Only when they were really thirsty would they consider the problem of drinking. Men, on the other hand, would mostly consider whether it was clean and whether they could drink it. Of course, empress-like hypocrites probably had the same thoughts as women, and had nothing to do with whether they liked to be clean or not. The Allure Enchantress looked at Yu Qianqiu who was leisurely and contented in the water. She said with love and hate, "Damn you! Is this a water spell? So not only do you cultivate fire spells, you also cultivate water spells. Could this be the ability that your soul formation master taught you?" Yu Qianqiu smiled noncommittally. He didn't say yes nor did he say no. He slowly floated in the water. One of his hands was raised in front of his chest. His thumb pressed against the middle finger that was bent towards the center of his palm. He made a hand seal and a spherical space formed around him. Suddenly he shouted, "Seal!" The whole house seemed to shake along with his shout. The floor and walls of the room made a light creaking sound. The water in the room instantly turned into ice. A block of ice the size of a room suddenly formed just like that. The room immediately became a crystal-like world. The Allure Enchantress was not in the mood to appreciate it. She retracted her protective aura and felt a dense cold air rushing towards her. She used her hand to touch the curved surface of the ice that trapped her. She was shocked and said, "What a domineering spell. It can actually freeze such a big block of ice in an instant." As she said this, she looked at Yu Qianqiu cautiously and shouted, "Little fox, what are you trying to do?" "Mistress, don't misunderstand. This small amount of ice naturally can't trap Mistress. It's just that Mistress is naturally afraid of heat and wears so little clothes for a long time. I specially came to help Mistress cool down for a while. Disciple still has some matters to attend to and can't stay for long. I will disturb you again in the future. Farewell." Yu Qianqiu bowed and said with a faint smile. He raised his hand and shot out a green fire dragon. A narrow ice path immediately opened up in the direction of the door. He stepped on the ice wall and his whole body slid out of the door. A black shadow flashed out of the room, did a few somersaults in the air, and landed steadily on the ground. Yu Qianqiu walked out of the room in a swaying manner. He could vaguely hear the voice of the Enchantress of 100 Charms scolding him, "Little fox, come back here for me and help me melt this ice." He didn't have much time to waste with this mistress, so he turned a deaf ear to it. The Allure Enchantress released her divine sense and naturally discovered that Yu Qianqiu had walked far away. She was so angry that she gnashed her teeth. With her cultivation, this little bit of ice would not be able to trap her. She could completely shatter it and escape. However, the 10,000 flower pavilion was located in the bustling city of the capital. Such a big movement would definitely attract attention. Moreover, if she did that, the pavilion would be completely destroyed. Looks like this little fox had already calculated this beforehand. "Don't tell me that you can't wait to avoid me when you see me." The Allure Enchantress bit her red lips and a strand of red silk on her shoulder floated up. It rapidly struck the ice surface and in a short period of time, a 2 to 3 meter long passageway was created. The Allure Enchantress's figure flashed and she flew from this passageway to the passageway that Yu Qianqiu had created. She then bent her waist and flew out of the pavilion. The Allure Enchantress angrily looked around but she couldn't even see a shadow of Yu Qianqiu. She then looked at the frozen pavilion and was slightly stunned. She saw that on the roof of the pavilion, under the sunlight, there was actually a beautiful rainbow that just happened to envelop the pavilion. She couldn't take her eyes off it and the anger on her face turned into a gentleness that was unique to a woman. The next day when she came back to the pavilion, she immediately gnashed her teeth in hatred. This pavilion had been roasted by Yu Qianqiu's fire, blistered and frozen. After the ice melted, how could it still be livable? It had to be renovated. Chapter 335. When he returned to the National Pillar General's residence, he saw Shi Xiaotian waiting for him with a face full of joy. Yu Qianqiu looked back and saw passers-by passing by from time to time. He glared at Shi Xiaotian and walked over to bow. "Third young master. Shi Xiaotian came to his senses and knew that he didn't want to be ostentatious in a crowded place. He immediately acted like a young master and nodded. Follow me. The two of them walked to the back garden. As they walked, Shi Xiaotian asked softly, Boss, I haven't seen you for a long time. Why didn't you tell me that you were coming? I only knew that you were here when I bumped into the two sisters-in-law. The cultivation world hasn't been peaceful recently and I've been busy. I'll be going on a long journey soon, so I came back to settle some miscellaneous matters. I don't know when I'll be back again, Yu Qianqiu said. Shi Xiaotian nodded. Mother heard that you're here and wanted to pay her a visit. There's no need. Send my regards to your mother. As they spoke, the two of them arrived at the back garden. Yu Qianqiu suddenly said, I'm going to your father's place soon. Ask your mother and the rest if there's anything they want me to tell your father. It's best if it's a letter so that it's easier to pass on. Don't worry about me. Go ask them now. I can't stay for too long. Got it. Shi Xiaotian turned and ran. Although he didn't know what his boss was busy with, he knew that it wasn't easy for his boss to come. Yu Qianqiu walked into the courtyard alone. When he thought about the cultivation world, he couldn't help but worry about the safety of the family. Shi Xiaotian's cultivation was only at the late stage of foundation establishment. The old team members sent to protect the family were also at the nascent soul stage. It wasn't a big problem usually, but it was hard to say now. He had to raise their cultivation as soon as possible. His spiritual perception immediately locked onto Qin Feng in Utopia. He saw Qin Feng and Xiao Wanqing fighting for work, nodding and bowing like slaves. How was he asking Xiao Wanqing to take care of his life? He was clearly taking care of Xiao Wanqing's life. Yu Qianqiu shook his head and smiled bitterly. He sent a voice transmission. Qin Feng, how many limit-breaking pills did you refine? Give me some first. Boss. Qin Feng was taken aback at first, then awkwardly said, I haven't refined it yet. I'll come back tomorrow. Xiao Wanqing saw him talking to the air and couldn't help but look around blankly. Yu Qianqiu's expression immediately darkened. He disappeared from the courtyard and appeared beside the two people from Utopia. Xiao Wanqing saluted with some resentment. Leader. Yu Qianqiu nodded and said, Since you're with Qin Feng, then you're family. There's no need to be so polite in the future. Hearing this, Qin Feng was quite satisfied and nodded repeatedly at Xiao Wanqing. Yu Qianqiu glanced at him and said expressionlessly, Come with me, I have something to talk to you about. Wanqing, wait for me. I'll be there in a while, Qin Feng said and left with Yu Qianqiu. The two of them arrived at Qin Feng's personal alchemy room. Yu Qianqiu immediately turned hostile and shouted, Qin Feng, have you been bewitched by women? You're so careless with such an important matter at hand. Don't tell me there won't be time for the two of you to flirt in the future? I'll warn you today. If you abandon your important matters and stay by a woman's skirt all day, I'll immediately chase Xiao Wanqing out of Utopia. The two of you will never be able to see each other again. Qin Feng was shocked. However, their relationship wasn't ordinary, so he wasn't afraid that Yu Qianqiu would really do that. However, it was hard to say if his boss was ruthless. He sucked up to him and said, Boss, calm down. I know my mistake. I won't dare to do it again. He understood that Yu Qianqiu was already giving him face by not falling out with Xiao Wanqing and everyone else. Otherwise, with his temper, Yu Qianqiu snorted coldly and didn't say anything else. He walked to the medicine room at the side and took out a few sets of spirit herbs. With a wave of his hand, a nearly transparent green flame ignited, and he threw in the spirit herbs to quickly refine. His proficient refining technique attracted Qin Feng once again. Not long after, a batch of white and 5 batches of purple limit-breaking pills were completed. Yu Qianqiu stored them in his storage bag. Looking at Qin Feng's disappointed expression, he shook his head and instantly disappeared. Take care, boss. Qin Feng chuckled and waved at the air. Then he exhaled and smiled bitterly. Boss had a lot of things to do. Not only did he have to gather a large number of spirit stones, he also had to run back to refine pills. He really managed his business well. Now that everyone was busy, it seemed like boss was right. He had really been bewitched by women. Qin Feng rubbed his forehead. After coming to his senses, he felt a little ashamed. He turned around and opened the lid of the pill furnace. When Yu Qianqiu returned to the back garden of the general's mansion, Shi Xiaotian was already waiting for him with a few letters in his hands. Seeing him suddenly appear, Shi Xiaotian didn't find it strange at all. He handed the letters over with a smile and said, I heard that you came back very quickly. Other than mother, big brother and 2 sisters-in-law also wrote letters. There's also one for me. Sorry to trouble you, boss. Yu Qianqiu took the letters and threw them into his storage bag. He jokingly said, "When did you become so polite with me? It's not like it's my personal matter. I'm just thanking you on behalf of my family." Shi Xiaotian smiled. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and took out the white and purple limit-breaking pills. He placed them on the table and said, "Keep the white one for yourself. Give the purple one to the team members who are guarding the general's mansion and Ling Feng and the other two. I will bring them here as soon as possible. There's no need to gather so many people now. Otherwise I will go bankrupt." He then told Shi Xiaotian about the effects of the two pills and how to consume them. Shi Xiaotian was surprised. "Since there's such a difference between the two pills, why are you giving the purple one to Ling Feng and the other two? That's not very good. Don't be so long-winded. I know what to do. I won't harm them." Yu Qianqiu took out another storage bag and threw it on the table. He sighed. "I'm so poor. Here are 10 million high-grade spirit stones. You guys can make do with it." Before he finished speaking, his expression changed. "Oh no, Xianping is in danger. Wait for me here." Shi Xiaotian saw that Yu Qianqiu had suddenly disappeared, but he heard his words clearly. His face turned solemn as he muttered, "What danger would Xianping be in?" In the outside world, Yu Qianqiu was still unable to teleport with his cultivation. If he relied on the mysterious effect of the golden bead, as long as there were coordinates in the outside world that he needed, Utopia would be his bridge to any shore. No matter how far the distance was, he would be able to reach it in an instant. After suddenly sensing Xianping's distress signal, Yu Qianqiu immediately returned to Utopia and disappeared again. Speaking of which, Xianping was a man of few words and was too straightforward. To put it bluntly, he was a one-track mind. After separating from Ling Feng and Beizi, he came to a relatively large city in the Wuxia Empire. On the same day he met a few orphans with spiritual roots. Thinking that he would definitely need a place to stay when there were more people, he couldn't possibly stay in an inn. That would be too conspicuous. Hence, he was in a hurry to find a house to rent. As the saying went, the land and water nurtured the people of the area. The people here were more arrogant. When they heard that Xianping did not have a local accent and saw that he was dressed extravagantly, they asked him, "You don't look like a local. Do you need a house urgently?" Xianping replied honestly, "I need it urgently." Hence, there was no problem with renting a house. The price was too high to say anything. Although Xianping was a little slow, he was not an idiot. After all, he had stayed in the capital for a long time and understood the price of goods. How could the rent of such a place be twice as high as in the capital? He discussed with them but to no avail, so he rejected them. In the end, he asked a few houses in a row and found that each house was blacker than the other. It was all because of the landlord at the beginning. The group of landlords worked together to rip him off. Hence, he returned to the first house. The landlord was happy and the price was 5 times higher than before. Xianping was furious and almost hit them. However, he was a little stubborn. Thinking of the rules of the cultivation world, he did not make a move in the end. If it was Ling Feng and Beizi, even if they did not do it openly, they would still teach him a lesson in secret. However, if it was the two of them, they would have just thrown money to rent the house right from the start. Shi Xiaotian had given them a lot of money. Why would a cultivator care about that little bit of money? Then there wouldn't have been anything else. Seeing that Xianping wanted to hit him, the landlord flew into a rage and scolded, "What? You're a foreigner and you want to hit me? I say you're dressed like a dog. Why are you pretending to be rich when you don't have money? You think it's too expensive? There's a rundown temple at the foot of the mountain in the south of the city. If you have the guts, go live there. It's free of charge." Alright, this Xianping was really stubborn. He did not think of any other way and actually went to live in that rundown temple in a fit of anger. After a period of time, the rundown temple had collected hundreds of orphans with spiritual roots. One day, an orphan was playful and sneaked out of the rundown temple. Because it was at the foot of the mountain, the orphan was bitten by a poisonous snake. When Xianping came back, he found that the orphan was deeply poisoned. With his cultivation, he could not completely expel the poison. At this moment, he thought of Yu Qianqiu. Coincidentally, at this crucial moment, 8 people barged into the rundown temple. When they saw the courtyard full of children with spiritual roots, they were all stunned. When they saw that Xianping was in the middle stage of the foundation building realm, they thought that Xianping was sent by some sect to recruit disciples. Hence, without saying a word, one of them asked Xianping to step aside. That person quickly and efficiently saved the child. Xianping was clumsy and did not know how to express his gratitude. He actually took out a handful of golden amber high-grade spirit stones from his storage bag and stuffed them into the hands of the other party to express his gratitude. This time the eyes of the 8 people turned green. Their shifty eyes would glance at Xian Ping's storage bag from time to time. The consequences of being disloyal at the sight of wealth could be imagined. These 8 people were originally herb-gathering disciples of the Deluo sect. They were the kind of disciples that went around collecting spiritual herbs. After the 8 of them exchanged glances, one of them came out to curry favor with Xian Ping. He asked which sect Xian Ping was from and how many people came with him. Xian Ping, this silly goose, actually said that he was a non-sect itinerant cultivator and that he was alone outside. Although he said that, the 8 people did not believe him. Why would a non-sect itinerant cultivator collect so many children with spiritual roots? Moreover, he was so rich. After a few questions, Xian Ping saw that a few kind-hearted people who helped him did not believe him. In a moment of desperation, in order to prove himself, he actually said that he was an abandoned disciple of the supporting Immortal Island and that he only succeeded in the foundation-building realm by chance after leaving the island. He was not so stupid that he did not give up on Yu Qianqiu. The herb-gathering disciples of the Deluo sect looked at each other in dismay. They were still somewhat skeptical, but they could not resist the temptation of a large amount of spiritual stones. However, if they made a move here, they were afraid that Xian Ping's helpers would come. Therefore they found an excuse to ask for his help and deceived Xian Ping into the deep mountains behind the temple. The result was naturally ferocious. Xian Ping's situation immediately became precarious. Among the 8 people, aside from 2 whose cultivation was lower than Xian Ping's, the others were all higher than him. Especially the leader, who was in the early stage of core formation. How could Xian Ping be a match for them? Fortunately, Yu Qianqiu was worried about the 3 people's safety and gave each of them a pile of talismans to protect themselves. Under the encirclement of the 8 people, Xian Ping used a bunch of random talismans to open a path and actually killed his way out of the encirclement and fled. However, his body was also riddled with wounds. At the critical moment, he was lucky that he knew to take out the silver ball that Yu Qianqiu had given him and send out a distress signal. However, he wasn't confident and didn't know if it would be of any use. There were core formation cultivators among the 8 people. In terms of speed, Xian Ping couldn't escape very far. After using up all the talismans he had, he was finally trapped in a valley. Xian Ping looked around and sadly discovered that Yu Qianqiu had not appeared in time. Just as he was about to fight to the death, he saw a servant in black clothes and a black hat suddenly appear on top of a nearby rock. Such a coquettish and familiar attire, who else could it be but Yu Qianqiu? Boss didn't lie to me, he really did come to save me. Xian Ping, who was riddled with wounds and dressed in rags, was so excited that tears almost flowed out. With a trembling voice, he loudly shouted, "Boss!" The 8 of them immediately noticed Yu Qianqiu, who was on top of the mountain rock. He was dressed like a servant, yet he had suddenly appeared in the remote mountains. It was too strange. The leading core formation cultivator shouted, "The Deluo sect is handling business. Unrelated people, get out of the way." He discovered that with his cultivation level, he couldn't see through the person's cultivation level and immediately panicked. Thus he used the name of the Deluo sect. The Deluo sect is handling business. Unrelated people, get out of the way? Yu Qianqiu snorted and jumped down from the rock with a sullen face. He walked toward the surrounded Xian Ping without the slightest scruple, laughing evilly as he said, "Deluo sect? What a great show of power. It seems that I and the Deluo sect have an inexplicable fate. I can't even pick a corner and run into them. What a goddamn coincidence." Chapter 336. From his words, he seemed to be an old acquaintance of the Deluo sect. The 8 hesitantly let him pass. In reality, since they couldn't see through his cultivation, none of them dared to stop him. Yu Qianqiu sized up Xian Ping, who was in rags and covered in wounds, and asked in a deep voice, "What exactly happened?" Xian Ping was relieved that his boss was here. He angrily glared at the 8 and told them everything that had happened. Yu Qianqiu's eyebrows rose higher and higher as he listened. He coldly looked at the 8 and suddenly snorted, 8 against 1? As expected of the Deluo sect's disciples. How could you do such a thing? You dared to provoke my people, humph. It's your bad luck to fall into my hands. None of you will escape today. The 8 were shocked. They couldn't see through this newcomer's cultivation and he spoke so arrogantly. He must be an expert. The core formation cultivator took a step forward and cupped his hands. "Senior, please calm down. From your words, You seem to have a deep relationship with our Deluo sect. I believe we mishandled this matter and caused a misunderstanding. I hope that Senior will give face to our Deluo sect and be magnanimous. The cultivation world didn't judge one's age based on one's appearance. They determined that Yu Qianqiu was an expert based on his cultivation. Deep relationship? When Yu Qianqiu heard this, he laughed and teased, "You are right. I am indeed very familiar with your Deluo sect. Furthermore, our friendship is not shallow. For example, I am very familiar with your Deluo sect's elder, Zhu Xianxian." The 8 people were pleasantly surprised as they looked at each other. It seemed like they managed to escape unscathed. The leader of the group bowed deeply and said, "So it turns out to be Elder Zhu's good friend. We were too rash." Then he nodded to the others. The 8 people bowed together and said, "Greetings, Senior." Yu Qianqiu didn't act polite and accepted their greetings. Xian Ping was a little discouraged. It turned out that boss was familiar with them. It seemed like he wouldn't be able to take revenge. The core formation cultivator smiled and said, "Since Senior is Elder Zhu's friend, could you tell me your name? I'll go back and report it. If Elder Zhu asks, it'll be easier for us to answer." He thought this matter was over and wanted to return to the sect. Yu Qianqiu shook his head and said, "It's better not to say my name. If your sect master finds out, he will definitely be furious." "Senior, why is that?" The core formation stage cultivator asked in confusion. Sigh. Yu Qianqiu let out a long sigh and said, "Back then I lost control of myself outside the 100 Flowers Valley and killed your sect leader's son Luo Xiaohan. I even killed a few De Luo sect disciples and scared Zhu Xianxian away. How could your sect leader not be furious when he found out my name?" Ah. The group of people turned pale with fright after hearing this. The core formation stage cultivator pointed at him and stammered, You're Yu Qianqiu?" Yu Qianqiu raised an eyebrow and dusted the crooked hat on his head. He sneered and said, "That's right, I am Yu Qianqiu. I didn't expect you to know me. It seems like my name is quite famous in your De Luo sect." With his confirmation, all 8 of them subconsciously took a step back with pale faces. How could the name Yu Qianqiu not be famous in De Luo sect? Ever since he beat up Luo Xiaohan at the Wu clan, everyone in the Daluo sect had heard of his name. Afterward, he became even more infamous outside the 100 Flower Valley. He killed Luo Xiaohan and all the disciples, and even the sect elder Zhu Xianxian had to avoid him. As a result, the Luo sect became the laughingstock of the entire cultivation world. A humiliation in exchange for Yu Qianqiu's reputation. In a fit of rage, the sect master ordered his disciples to search for this person. Unfortunately, Yu Qianqiu's whereabouts were elusive. Almost no one had ever seen him. Everyone thought that he was afraid of the De Luo sect's revenge and had hidden away in some corner of the sect. Now that the cultivation world had undergone a great upheaval, the Daluo sect had put away their thoughts and had almost forgotten about this person. Who would have thought that they would run into this malefic star here? This guy could even scare away a tribulation passing stage elder, so how could they, with their mere cultivation, stand a chance against him? Xian Ping, who was covered in wounds, couldn't help but laugh. He thought to himself, "I thought I wouldn't be able to get my revenge. Boss is so funny. He's obviously the enemy, but he's still trying to be friends." Xian Ping naturally knew of De Luo sect's status in the cultivation world. Now that he saw De Luo sect's disciples scared of their boss, he felt proud. He didn't follow the wrong person. "Yu Qianqiu, don't be so insolent. Hiding in the wilderness and bullying us little disciples is nothing. If you have the ability, come to my De Luo sect." The core formation stage cultivator knew that today was not going to be a good day, so his tone became tough. Yu Qianqiu sneered. "Thank you for your warm invitation. Don't worry. Even if De Luo sect doesn't come looking for me, I will. When I come looking for your De Luo sect, it will be the day that De Luo sect's name is erased from the cultivation world." Xian Ping. He turned around and shouted, "Revenge. Whoever hurt you, beat them up. Don't let a single one of them go. My people aren't that easy to bully. They're a bunch of blind bastards." Xian Ping was a dull person, but people like him always hated evil. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth with his tattered sleeves, he raised his sword and rushed towards a person without hesitation. The heaviest sword wound on his back was caused by this person's flying sword. With his boss backing him up, he naturally had to get revenge. The man fearfully glanced at his fellow disciples to his left and right. Suddenly he threw away his flying sword, jumped onto it and turned around to flee. "You're running to the sky." Yu Qianqiu snorted and pointed his finger. A glistening water dragon shot out from his finger and quickly chased after the man. Water? Everyone, including those from the Luo sect, was stunned. They had never seen a spell like this. Before the man could get far, the water dragon wrapped around him and he struggled. The water dragon gradually shrank, and the man's body gradually expanded. His stomach in particular was unbelievably big. The man looked like he was in pain. He opened his mouth as if he wanted to call for help, but the water dragon wrapped around him sucked in a lot of water. With a bang, the man exploded. Blood rained down from the sky, along with broken skin and broken limbs. A skinless head fell in front of everyone. This kind of death was a ghastly sight to the group of people, and they were extremely terrified. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand, and the scattered water reformed into a water dragon and flew back. However, it was dyed red with blood. Yu Qianqiu frowned. "You ruined my nest of good water." He formed a seal with his fingers, and the blood instantly turned into dozens of cold red icicles. They covered the sky and glared at the people below. "Whoever dares to run will end up like this. My people are not to be trifled with. Behave yourselves and wait to be slaughtered." Yu Qianqiu scanned the crowd and said coldly. Xian Ping looked at the red icicles in the sky. With the help of his boss, he immediately became spirited. The flying sword in his hand quickly shot towards a person who was in a daze. That person didn't even have the time to react. He didn't even have the time to scream before his head was sent flying by a fountain of blood. His eyes were wide open in the air as he died with grievances. Since they were going to die either way, why would they wait to be slaughtered? The core formation cultivator shouted, "Split up and run. Those who can escape with their lives, hurry back to the sect and let them avenge us." In an instant, the 7 of them jumped onto their flying swords and flew away. "If I can't even deal with you guys, then what the hell am I supposed to do?" Yu Qianqiu sneered. He formed a seal with his fingers, and the red icicles in the air scattered and chased after them. With his nascent soul cultivation, chasing after these people with his icicles was a piece of cake. In all directions, screams could be heard. One by one they fell from the flying swords in the air. Those who fell were all pierced by the icicles and were pinned to the ground, struggling in pain. Xian Ping chased after them and chopped off their heads one by one. This silent gourd was really hard to tell, but he was also ruthless. The core formation cultivator on the other hand had some skills. A few icicles that chased after him were all smashed by his palm. In the end, dozens of icicles surrounded him, and he immediately smashed a few more. Suddenly, his body trembled and his chest felt cold. Looking down, he saw an icicle protruding from his chest. Perhaps he knew he was going to die. He raised his head to the sky and howled. Suddenly, his howl stopped and he fell from the sky like a hedgehog. Chapter 337. The 2 of them returned to the dilapidated temple at the foot of the mountain. A pot was set up in the middle of the courtyard, and a fragrant meat soup was being cooked. A group of orphans were holding large white steamed buns and eating the meat soup with relish. They had made it themselves. Seeing the 2 appear, the group of children stood up. Perhaps it was because they saw Xian Ping covered in blood, they looked at Yu Qianqiu with fear. They probably misunderstood Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu looked around the dilapidated temple and shook his head at Xian Ping with a strange expression. This was his nature. It was hard to change. Xian Ping pointed at the group of children and said, "Boss, they are all here." Yu Qianqiu nodded. "Leave them to me. There's no need to search for more people in the future. Quickly return to the general's mansion. When I'm not here, listen to Shi Shaotian. Understood?" "Understood." After seeing Yu Qianqiu's methods today, Xian Ping was completely convinced. Yu Qianqiu didn't say anything else. With a wave of his hand, the children in the courtyard disappeared along with the pot of meat soup. Then he himself also disappeared. Seeing that everyone was gone, Xian Ping immediately took off his clothes and put on a new set of clothes. He didn't stop to rest and flew toward the direction of the capital. This was the good thing about wooden people. They were stubborn. The moment Yu Qianqiu gave them a command, they immediately carried it out. Yu Qianqiu didn't stop to look for Ling Feng and Beizi. After taking in the people they had gathered, he told them what he told Xian Ping and returned to the general's mansion. Seeing him, Shi Shaotian quickly asked, "How is Xian Ping?" "He's fine. He ran into a group of trash from the Daluo sect, but they've been dealt with." Yu Qianqiu walked to the table and drank a cup of tea. He turned around and said, "I've already ordered Ling Feng and the other 2 to hurry to the capital. From now on, you'll be in charge of the 3 of them and the 10 members in the mansion. Remember to keep a low profile. The cultivation world isn't peaceful at this time." Shi Shaotian said with an embarrassed smile, That's not good, right? How can I command them? Yu Qianzhou waved his hand and said, there's no need to say anything more. I've wasted too much time this time, so I don't have time to argue with you. I've already instructed Ling Feng's group of 3 and those 10 team members. Feel free to use them. As for the restriction-breaking pill, arrange a time for them to consume it. Don't say that you can't even do this. There are more important tasks for you in the future. Shi Xiaoyan's eyes lit up when he heard that. He had long desired to roam the cultivation world. That way his cultivation would not have been in vain. However, he was tied down by his family and could not leave at will. He nodded repeatedly and said, Boss, don't worry, I understand. Let's not talk about this anymore. Your father is probably waiting anxiously for a long time. I still have to go to your father's place. As soon as Yu Qianzhou finished speaking, he disappeared again, leaving Shi Xiaotian looking forward to how he would make his way in the cultivation world in the future. Little did he know that when he truly stepped into the cultivation world, what awaited him would be a baptism of blood and slaughter. In the Western military camp, there were no tents anymore. Instead, there were sturdy and reliable barracks. On the training field, Shirin Tian was wearing his military uniform and personally leading the training of the army. Not far away, on a tall watchtower, Shi Wenguang was wearing a full set of armor as he looked at the elite troops training below. He did not know when this army would be able to display its usefulness. After all, a general without a battle was lonely. Shi Wenguang turned around and looked at the 4 people behind him. These were the cultivators that Yu Qianzhou had sent to protect him. At that time he did not think too much about it because he wanted to escape from the capital. But who knew that it was easier to invite a god than to send him away? Now that he thought about it, Yu Qianzhou had sent these people. In addition to protecting him, he also had the intention of monitoring and controlling him. If he did not follow Yu Qianzhou's instructions, he believed that if these people wanted to take the heads of him and his father, it would be as easy as taking something out of their pocket. No matter how brave the soldiers in the army were, who could stop them? This Yu Qianzhou was really far-sighted. In the face of the sudden incident at that time, besides solving the problem, he actually made people unknowingly become his pawns. Shi Xiaotian looked in the direction of the capital and sighed in his heart. His wife and son were there. He did not know when he would be able to lead the army to the east and reunite with his family. But all of this depended on Yu Qianzhou, who had disappeared from the cultivation world for a long time. He would occasionally come in contact with some rogue cultivators. He had heard of Yu Qianzhou's big actions in the cultivation world. However, he hadn't heard any news about him for a long time. He didn't know where he had gone. Chief. Shi Wenguang suddenly heard a shout behind him. It took him a long time to react. He turned around and saw that it was Yu Qianzhou who he had been thinking about. Yu Qianzhou smiled and said, General, what are you thinking about? Why are you so lost in thought? Shi Wenguang did not answer. He cupped his fists and said, So it's Mr. Taking this opportunity, Shi Xiaotian took a look at Yu Qianzhou, who was still dressed like a servant of his family. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. This guy was obviously a strong person, but he always appeared in front of him with a cowardly look. As the two of them spoke, they leaned on the wooden railing of the sentry tower. As far as their eyes could see, there were no clouds in the blue sky, and the sun was shining brightly. On the vast land, thousands of soldiers and horses were moving in an orderly manner. It was a magnificent sight. Looking at the extraordinary martial arts practice below, Yu Qianzhou sighed, General is really good at leading troops. I believe that General is already prepared to lead the army to the east. A trace of joy flashed in Shi Wenguang's eyes. He threw off his cloak and waved his hand at the people below. He said in a heroic manner, My millions of soldiers are ready for battle, and we have sufficient provisions. As long as Mr. is ready, we can lead the army to the east at any time. I guarantee that in less than a year, we will be able to conquer the whole of China. Good. Yu Qianzhou applauded. The name of the pillar of the state general is known to the world. Wherever the general points his sword, the army will look down on them. Who dares to stand in his way? Naturally he will be invincible. But Yu Qianzhou's tone softened a little. He smiled and said, The time is not right yet. General needs to be patient for the time being. But don't worry, General. The day will not be too far away. Shi Wenguang thought that he had brought good news. But when he heard that, his heart turned cold again. Yu Qianzhou smiled and took out the letter Shi Xiaotian gave him. He handed it over and said, This is a letter from General's family. I believe it will make General feel better. Shi Wenguang took the letter and shook his head. He sighed, I wonder when my family will be reunited. Although he said that, he knew that his family was also in Yu Qianqiu's hands. He had no choice but to listen to him. I almost forgot to tell General a piece of good news. I believe Madam has mentioned it in her letter. But I still want to congratulate General in advance. Yu Qianqiu smiled. General's eldest daughter-in-law is pregnant. General will be a grandfather soon. Really? Shi Wenguang was overjoyed. He immediately found the letter from his wife and read it carefully. Yu Qianqiu did not disturb him. He waved to a few of his men and they went down the watchtower together. Shi Wenguang read the news that he was going to be a grandfather in the letter. He was overjoyed. But when he saw the date at the end of the letter, he was stunned. Wasn't this letter written today? How did it get here within 6 hours? From the capital city to here, it was such a long distance. He immediately thought of Yu Qianqiu's supernatural power. He couldn't help but gasp. When he came back to his senses, he looked around and saw the 4 bodyguards climbing up again. One of them bowed and said, "General, our leader has some matters to attend to and has to leave first. He asked us to bid farewell on his behalf." Shi Wenguang waved his hand in a daze. He thought, it's over. My grandson is going to fall into that guy's hands again? Chapter 338. Within the twilight valley of the Fei region, a strange yet majestic blue flame was blazing. Yu Qianqiu, who had left the western barracks, had returned here. This was for no other reason than that he had used up most of the blue fire elemental essence in his body. He needed to replenish it so that he could defend himself if something unexpected happened. Looking up at the azure flames, Yu Qianqiu walked up to them. Stretching out his palm, he circulated the star flame fire art, and dense azure fire elemental energy flowed into his hand. As he was happily absorbing, an angry roar suddenly rang out in his mind, "Fire thief, it's you again." Startled, Yu Qianqiu looked down into the eye of fire. This voice seemed to belong to the Fei child underground who was not afraid of fire. In his daze, a force cut off his absorption of the fire elemental energy. Needless to say, it was the little Fei down below. Yu Qianqiu raised an eyebrow and coldly snorted, "Little Fei, I'll let you steal it." Without another word, he bent his body and leaped into the azure flames. His limbs spread out as he floated in the flames. The star flame fire art madly circulated, and the fire elemental energy continuously flowed into his body. What a shameless fire thief, hurry up and stop. The child's voice in his mind immediately began to curse. Unfortunately, it didn't seem to know much about cursing and only repeated the same few words. How could such words pierce through Yu Qianqiu's skin? Yu Qianqiu didn't even blink as he continued to absorb. He concluded that the person down below couldn't come out, or else they wouldn't just be talking. The child's voice seemed to grow weaker and weaker until it was pleading, "Kind fire thief, I beg you, please don't absorb anymore. If you do, it will be very difficult for my little brothers and sisters to wake up." In the end, the voice slowly faded away. Yu Qianqiu didn't care about the life or death of the Fei. He inhaled until he was full and floated back to the shore. As soon as he withdrew the fire art, 2 azure flames flickered in his eyes. His entire body was filled with vigor, and he stretched comfortably before suddenly disappearing from the spot. When Shaoqin reappeared, he was already at the sea 50 kilometers away from the fiendish ghost domain. He looked around but did not find anything strange. The long sword on Yu Qianqiu's back popped out. He jumped onto the flying sword and flew out from the craggy rocks towards the southern sea purple bamboo forest. He did not know what Bai Changchun wanted him to do and how long it would take. Therefore, he took the risk of delaying some time and went back to deal with his personal affairs first. Otherwise, he would never be able to calm down. The vast South Sea was boundless. Birds flew in the sky, blue waves surged to the heavens, and occasionally whales and sharks showed their backs. Riding on a flying sword, riding on the sea breeze, the blazing sun like fire, the rolling waves of the blue sea, sleeping during the day and rising at night, the bright moon attracting the stars, Yu Qianqiu flew alone above the vast sea for 2 days and nights. He estimated that he was about to reach the location Bai Changchun had mentioned, but he still didn't see that bullshit southern sea purple bamboo forest. He couldn't help but feel a little confused. "Don't play with me. Old man Bai wasn't that humorous." Standing on the flying sword, he looked around with his hand on his forehead like Monkey Sunday. He didn't even see a small island. How could there be a purple bamboo forest? Suddenly, an indistinct white fog in the distance caught his attention. He quickly flew over on his flying sword. When he was in the sky, the vast sea of fog below made his eyes light up. He had stayed on Supporting Immortals Island before, and there was a similar island protection formation there. Other than defending against enemies, it also had another function. In the words of his previous life, it was to prevent natural disasters such as typhoons and tsunamis. This was probably the legendary Southern Sea purple bamboo forest. Damn, I finally found it. It's not fun to go for a ride on the sea for a few days. Yu Qianqiu patted his chest in relief. When he got close to the sea of fog on his flying sword, he circulated his primordial qi and shouted, "May I ask if this is the Southern Sea purple bamboo forest?" His voice rolled into the sea of fog. After a while there was no response. Yu Qianqiu wanted to barge into the island protection formation to take a look, but he was worried that it was a killing formation. He couldn't help but wonder if the owner wasn't home or if his voice was too soft. Thus he shouted again, "May I ask if this is the Southern Sea purple bamboo forest? Is the owner home?" Oh, is there an end to that broken voice? Why are you shouting in the middle of the day? Can't you let me sleep? Leave now, this is not the Southern Sea purple bamboo forest. A lazy and impatient voice came from the sea of fog. It didn't sound loud, but it made Yu Qianqiu's ears ring. Yu Qianqiu was shocked. What a high cultivation level. Then he was stunned again. After all this time, this wasn't the Southern Sea purple bamboo forest? Then where would it be? Senior, since you live here, you must know the location of the Southern Sea purple bamboo forest. Senior, please give me some pointers. I will be very grateful, Yu Qianqiu politely said. I don't know. Leave, don't disturb my afternoon nap. Just as the lazy voice finished and Yu Qianqiu was feeling gloomy, a girl's voice came from the sea of fog again. Mister, why are you looking for the Southern Sea purple bamboo forest? If the reason is reasonable, I can give you a pointer or two. As long as someone knew, Yu Qianqiu's eyes lit up. He cupped his fists and said, I don't have any reason to look for the Southern Sea purple bamboo forest. I am here under the orders of my master. The woman replied with an "oh" and said, Who is your master? How do you know about the Southern Sea purple bamboo forest? Hearing this, normal people didn't know about this place. Yu Qianqiu replied, My master's surname is Bai. He lives in the demon region Shuntian Island. The girl's clear and melodious voice exclaimed, Your senior Bai's disciple? What? Elder Bai took in a disciple? The lazy voice immediately became spirited and said, let him in. I want to see what kind of person can make Elder Bai take a liking to him. As soon as the voice finished, the sea of fog churned and a passage was quickly opened up in front of Yu Qianqiu. The girl said, I didn't know you are Elder Bai's disciple. Please don't take it to heart. Please come in. It seemed like these two were very familiar with Bai Changchun. Were they enemies or friends? After hesitating for a while, Yu Qianqiu still flew in carefully along the passage. After all, if he wanted to know where the Southern Sea purple bamboo forest was, he had to ask these two people. After passing through the passage, the surrounding sea of fog disappeared. It was really similar to the island's protective formation. From the outside it looked hazy, but from the inside there was nothing blocking it. Yu Qianqiu put away his flying sword and landed on the ground. A girl in purple was already waiting at the side. Yu Qianqiu only took a glance and was immediately attracted. Her beautiful hair was unrestrained, and her face was beautiful, quiet, and dignified. She had a pair of big eyes that were filled with intelligence, and her skin was fair. Coupled with her purple dress, she seemed to have an extraordinary temperament. A simple purple ribbon was tied around her waist, outlining her graceful figure. It was the first time they met, so it wasn't good to be too lecherous. He had to leave a good impression on the beauty. Yu Qianqiu forced himself to look elsewhere. It was fine if he didn't look, but the moment he looked, his face darkened. There were bamboos all around him, and they were purple bamboos that he had never seen before. He was currently in a purple bamboo sea. If someone said that this wasn't the Southern Sea purple bamboo forest, he wouldn't believe it even if he was beaten to death. He was obviously fooled. Chapter 339. A gust of wind blew, the bamboo sea swayed and rustled. A few purple bamboo leaves swirled and flew between the two of them. The lady in purple saw that Yu Qianqiu didn't look good and seemed to see through his displeasure. She couldn't see through his cultivation, so she bowed and said, This is the Southern Sea purple bamboo forest. My master is used to being free and unfettered. He doesn't have any taboos when he speaks. If he offended you in any way, I apologize on behalf of my master. I hope you won't take it to heart. With the lady apologizing, Yu Qianqiu's anger was reduced by half. Moreover, this was the purple bamboo forest. That middle stage demigod must be here. Even if he was angry, he had nowhere to vent. He remembered that Bai Changchun said that Master Nongzhu had a female disciple. This must be the lady in front of him. He shook his head and smiled bitterly. Since this is the Southern Sea Purple Bamboo Forest, you must be Master Nongzhu's disciple. The one who spoke before was Master Nongzhu. Yes, Elder Bai must have mentioned it. The lady in purple smiled. My name is Zi. May I know your name? Zi. Yu Qianqiu sized her up and said with cupped hands, Mrs. dressed in purple, you are indeed as beautiful as your name suggests. I am Yu Qianqiu. You are Yu Qianqiu? Zi suddenly asked. Yu Qianqiu was startled and said, Lady Zi, have you heard of me? Zi shook her head slightly and said, I think I've heard my master mention this name before, but that person's reputation in the cultivation world isn't that great. He must have the same name as Mr. Why would Elder Bai accept such a notorious person as a disciple? She then raised her hand to lead the way and said, My master is at the Zhu Lang Paradise, please follow me, mister. She then walked gracefully and led the way. Yu Qianqiu followed behind with a face full of suspicion. He thought to himself, is there anyone else called Yu Qianqiu in the cultivation world other than me? *CK. How could such an eccentric name have the same name and a bad reputation? No, if I have the chance, I must get rid of this person, lest he ruin my reputation, especially in front of a beauty. Within the bamboo forest, there was a 1-meter wide path that seemed to be paved with cobblestones. The winding path led deep into the bamboo forest. Walking on the small path, the bamboo forest on both sides was so dense that it was almost impossible to see the sun. Occasionally the sunlight would shine on the thick layer of bamboo leaves, giving off a special feeling. As Zi walked past, the scattered purple bamboo leaves on the path automatically drifted into the bamboo forest on both sides. Seeing such a strange scene for the first time, Yu Qianqiu could not help but look around. The purple bamboo was indeed beautiful. Some were slender, some were noble, and some were like the belly of a Buddha. They were probably rare species, and he had to find a chance to transplant some of them to Utopia. Just as he was thinking this, he passed through the bamboo forest. Suddenly, a courtyard appeared in the depths of the bamboo forest. It was purple in color, and was made from purple bamboo. Several houses were connected to each other, and there were even a few bamboo pavilions in between. The layout was very elegant. There was a purple bamboo fence outside, and on the porch archway that was connected to the small path, there was a plaque that was so purple that it was almost black. On it was written Bamboo Paradise. This plaque was most likely made from an old piece of purple bamboo that had been cut in half. In the bamboo courtyard, there was a faint purple aura lingering around. It looked like a paradise on earth. Some unknown birds were leisurely jumping around inside, and they were not afraid even if people came. Yu Qianqiu suddenly noticed a middle-aged man leaning lazily at the entrance of the main house, looking at him curiously with a burning gaze. Yu Qianqiu also looked at him. His first impression could only be described with one word, and that was handsome. Although he looked middle-aged, he was definitely a handsome man. He was tall, neither fat nor thin, just right. He was dressed like a scholar, and there was a purplish-black bamboo flute hanging on his waist. His hair was tied up on top of his head, and his hair was black and shiny. His starry eyes were bright, and his sword-like eyebrows made him look even more heroic. The bridge of his nose was tall and straight, and his cheeks were thin. His slightly thin lips formed a slight smile, and there were 2 dimples on both sides of his cheeks. His face showed a sense of vicissitudes, and it was a pity that it was destroyed by the laziness that he emitted. However, there was no doubt about the special charm of this kind of man. In addition to his outstanding appearance, he was definitely a handsome man. He was a super handsome man and not a beautiful man. He was the kind of man that even men had to admit was handsome. Yu Qianqiu felt a wave of sadness in his heart. There was actually such a handsome man in this world. How could other men live? This kind of man was a scourge if he went out. He was the kind that specialized in scourging women and young girls. Women would probably fall in love with him once they saw him. A scourge. A big scourge. However, his cultivation was so high that it was frightening. It really made one speechless. Zi raised her hand and pointed, "This is my master." Yu Qianqiu took 2 steps forward and bowed respectfully. Junior Yu Qianqiu greets Mr. Nongzhu. Don't be so polite. Nongzhu waved her hand casually, and her face released a charming lazy smile. However, the smile froze immediately. She was stunned and asked, "What did you say your name was?" Yu Qianqiu scratched his head and bowed again. "My name is Yu Qianqiu." "Your name is Yu Qianqiu?" Nongzhu's eyes lit up. She left the door frame and walked a few steps down. She circled around Yu Qianqiu and asked, "There is also a man named Yu Qianqiu in the cultivation world." Yu Qianqiu betrayed his master twice and made a lot of noise in the cultivation world. It is said that he also practiced a set of fire spells. It can be said that he is quite famous, and the cultivation world calls him the scum of the cultivation world. I have secretly looked for him several times, but he is so elusive that even I have not seen him. Do you know him? The more Yu Qianqiu listened, the darker his face became. It turned out that the Yu Qianqiu with a bad reputation that Ziyi mentioned was him, and the person that he wanted to find a chance to get rid of was also him. Damn it. Could it be that my reputation is really so bad that it's spread all the way here? Yu Qianqiu's face twitched a little and replied, "I am afraid that the Yu Qianqiu that you mentioned is me." "You are Yu Qianqiu?" Ziyi shouted in surprise. When she looked at Yu Qianqiu again, the expression on her face seemed to be a little disdainful. Yu Qianqiu was speechless. It seemed that he had repeated his name several times. Why did it sound a little strange? Doesn't look like it. Nongzhu shook her head and looked at him carefully. She said, "You don't look like the legendary scum of the cultivation world. What's more, Old Bai is used to being serious. It is impossible for him to accept that Yu Qianqiu as his disciple. What evidence do you have to prove that you are Yu Qianqiu?" Yu Qianqiu's neck thickened. Then he became discouraged and said dejectedly, "I don't know how to prove it. Is it that important whether I am Yu Qianqiu or not?" "Of course it is important. Yu Qianqiu, whom I have been looking for everywhere, has come to me voluntarily. Of course, I have to verify your authenticity." Nongzhu pinched her chin and said, "I have a few questions to test you. If you pass, you can prove that you are Yu Qianqiu." Yu Qianqiu felt dizzy. How could he meet such a person? He looked like a decent person. Was there something wrong with his brain? He wanted to find a place to bang his head against the wall. Nongzhu said seriously, "Let me ask you, which teacher is Old Man Bai?" "The third," Yu Qianqiu replied weakly. Ziyi frowned, and her gaze towards Yu Qianqiu was filled with disgust. "Yes, that's the right answer." Nongzhu nodded and asked, "Which sect did you join first?" "Ongquangsung." "Well, that's right. Which sect did you join second?" "Fuxin Island." "Well, not bad. After you joined the second sect, did you do anything wrong to the first sect?" "No." "Well, that's not right. Didn't you kill the grandson of the first sect leader?" "I did." "You didn't kill the grandson of the first sect leader?" "I did." "That's right. The first sect leader was also killed by you, right?" "It said that there were a bunch of other sect members." "I did." TSK. He abandoned his own sect to join another sect, and then turned around and killed his former fellow sect members. He even killed the previous sect leader. Don't tell me that doing this is not letting down his original sect? Yu Qianqiu was speechless. It was An Kuang-tsung who did wrong to him first. He never felt that there was anything wrong with what he did. But when this guy asked him, even he felt that he had done something disgraceful, let alone in the eyes of others. Forget it. I don't have anything in common with this psychopath, and there's no need to explain. He shook his head and said, "No." Ziyi frowned again. She didn't even look at Yu Qianqiu. Nongzhu's eyes lit up. He nodded and said, "Now I believe that you are the scum of the cultivation world. The truth is right in front of you, but you still dare to lie. You are indeed the scum of the cultivation world." "Wait a minute." He suddenly asked in confusion, "Didn't you tell Old Bai about what you did? Otherwise, how could he accept you as a disciple?" Yu Qianqiu wanted to catch this guy and beat him up. But if he did, he would definitely be beaten up. So he gritted his teeth and said, "I have told my master about all these things. I didn't hide it from him." "That's strange. Did Old Bai change his mind?" Nongzhu asked curiously. He thought for a while and shook his head. He probably didn't understand. Then he said, "I heard that you have practiced a powerful fire spell. Can you show it to me? It's the best way to prove that you are Yu Qianqiu." Yu Qianqiu couldn't stand it anymore. Even if his cultivation was high, he didn't have to torture him like this. He took a deep breath and said word by word in a deep voice, "Mr. Nongzhu, what do you want? Did I offend you in some way?" Ziyi snorted, "This is not Shuntian Island. No one will be polite to you. Show it to me. Don't make yourself unhappy." It's okay. Ziyi, don't talk nonsense." Nongzhu tried to smooth things over. "Yu Qianqiu, I don't mean anything. I just heard that you used the fire spell when you were in the core bearing stage and scared away a cultivator in the crossing calamity stage. I'm really curious. I want to see what's so special about your fire spell. I really don't mean anything else. Why don't you show it to me?" He had to lower his head when he was under someone else's roof. Yu Qianzhou's face turned livid. He said indifferently, "Yes, sir." As soon as he finished speaking, he emitted a whing sound, and his entire body emitted a green flame, dyeing the surroundings into a green color. Chapter 340. The sudden appearance of the green light immediately frightened the birds in the courtyard and caused them to scatter in all directions. Yu Qianzhou silently stood in the middle of the fire with his sword behind his back, allowing the green flames around him to wantonly spew out. He himself was like the source of the burning fire, like a dream or an illusion. This scene seemed a bit unreal. Nongzhu and Ziyi were shocked at first, but then they realized something was wrong. The fire on Yu Qianzhou looked strange and fierce, but they could not feel any warmth. After a moment of silence, Ziyi said coldly, "What overbearing fire spell? It looks weak. I think it's just an illusion." Yu Qianzhou turned his head slowly, and his emotionless eyes met Ziyi's. Ziyi's heart skipped a beat. His eyes were so cold. She didn't know that Yu Qianzhou felt that he had been humiliated time and time again, and that he had already reached the critical point of exploding. He really wanted to let her know whether his stellar flame fire technique was just an empty shell. He was so angry that he needed to let it out. "Hey, I heard that the fire you use with your fire art is red. Why is it green?" Nongzhu frowned and said, "Yu Qianzhou, did you not use your most powerful fire spell? Don't hide it. Show me what you're good at, I want to see that." The green fire was stirred. Yu Qianzhou said slowly, "It's not that I want to hide it, but I'm afraid that if I use it, your purple bamboo forest will be destroyed." Nongzhu looked around the purple bamboo forest and then looked at Yu Qianzhou seriously. She suddenly said strangely, "Hee. Strange, I can't see through your cultivation. You can't be more powerful than me, can you?" "You just noticed it now." Ziyi snorted. "His cultivation can't be higher than Master's." "Master, I was right. He's good at using illusion." "Ziyi, don't talk nonsense. The world is big and there are many extraordinary people. Old Man Bai is proud and arrogant, and his cultivation base is even higher. There must be a reason why he chose him." After reprimanding her disciple, Nongzhu smiled at Yu Qianzhou and said, "As long as I'm here, I can protect this purple bamboo forest. Yu Qianzhou, don't worry about using your fire spell. I really want to see it." As a cultivator at the middle stage of Huashan, her words were full of confidence. Yu Qianzhou nodded his head slightly, indicating that he would obey the order. He thought to himself, "I must burn this entire purple bamboo forest today, or else I will never be able to vent my anger." Seeing that Yu Qianzhou agreed, Nongzhu's eyes brightened. She retreated with Ziyi and watched Yu Qianzhou's actions. Yu Qianzhou didn't do much. He simply clenched his fists, his knuckles cracking, and he exhaled. However, the azure flames on the surface of his body began to fluctuate restlessly. A wave of scorching heat suddenly spread out. Yu Qianzhou did not say anything and rapidly pushed the temperature to the highest. Today he vowed to let this master and disciple know how powerful he was. Starting from his feet, the ground was scorched black, and it continued to expand. The sudden appearance and rapid change of the temperature caused Nongzhu's pupils to constrict. As if remembering something, she exclaimed, "Twilight Valley's blue flame, it's blue flame. No, it's even more tyrannical than the blue flame." It seemed that he also knew about the demon ghost realm's blue flame. The moment such tyrannical heat appeared, the first to bear the brunt of it were naturally Nongzhu and Ziyi. Ziyi quickly circulated her energy to resist, and a ring of light rapidly formed around her. This was her stellar energy barrier. Normally, for a stellar energy barrier to appear in the form of a ring of light signified that the person's cultivation had reached the final stages of the tribulation. However, the blue flame's heat was far too tyrannical, and Yu Qianzhou was deliberately giving them a hard time. One could easily imagine just how terrifying the temperature was. Ziyi's serene face revealed an expression of fear. Her stellar energy barrier wavered as if it was about to be destroyed by the invisible heat, but she continued to use all her cultivation and clench her teeth to resist. Nongzhu immediately realized that something was wrong with her disciple and harshly yelled, "Ziyi, quickly retreat. This flame is not something you can endure with your cultivation." Ziyi glanced at Yu Qianzhou with a complicated expression. Biting her lips, she obeyed her master's orders and teleported far away into the purple bamboo forest. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. "Brat, it seems that you really do want to burn down my purple bamboo forest. Fine, let me have a taste of your star flame fire art." Nongzhu said in high spirits, and her face was full of excitement. It seemed that she was the kind of person who had been lonely for a long time and was looking for a fight. However, it seemed a little too much for a middle stage of Huashan Realm Cultivator to fight an early stage of Yuanying Realm Cultivator. The purple-black flute on Nongzhu's waist appeared in her hand. She held it horizontally to her lips, and her slender fingers quickly flicked and pressed down, creating a series of finger shadows. Dee-lee-lee. The clear sound of the flute was like the sound of nature. Just listening to the sound, it seemed to be refreshing. The blue flame on Yu Qianzhou's body fluctuated along with the sound of the flute, but with a cold hum, the fire of the blue flame suddenly increased. The spreading blackness on the ground bypassed Nongzhu and quickly attacked the surrounding buildings. Just now, he used the high temperature to force Ziyi to retreat, but the high temperature that he controlled could not get close to Nongzhu. Therefore, he controlled the strong heat to attack the surroundings and no longer fought against Nongzhu. He wanted to see how Nongzhu could protect the purple bamboo forest. Nongzhu, who was playing the flute, showed a faint smile on her face. The sound of the flute suddenly changed and became melodious. Yu Qianzhou, who was surrounded by the blue flame, slightly squinted his eyes. He saw that the sound of the flute in Nongzhu's hand actually spread out in a kind of almost tangible sound wave. It could be seen with the naked eye, and quickly formed a transparent ball in a certain range, blocking the invasion of the high temperature to the buildings and wrapping the two people in it. Yu Qianzhou tried his best to drive the flute, but the strong heat that used to be invincible in the past could not break the sound barrier. Don't steam the steamed buns, fight for your dignity. Yu Qianzhou clenched his fists and made a cracking sound. He straightened his chest and waved his arms, saying, "Ah!" Boom! The blue flame suddenly burst out. He no longer fought against Nongzhu with the high temperature, but wanted to directly break the sound barrier with the fierce blue flame. In an instant, the transparent ball formed by the sound barrier was suddenly filled with the blue flame. Looking from the outside, it was like a blue ball with a diameter of dozens of meters emitting blue light. Ziyi, who was in the purple bamboo forest, witnessed all of this and her beautiful face turned pale. The high temperature just now still made her feel a lingering fear. If she was engulfed by this fierce green flame, she really didn't know if she would be able to endure it. In fact, her concern was unnecessary. If she really fought with Yu Qianzhou's cultivation, it would be very difficult for him to hurt her, no matter how strong the blue flame was. She couldn't just stand there and let Yu Qianzhou burn her with fire. The strong blue flame could not break the sound barrier. On the contrary, Nongzhu was still playing the flute with a smile on her face. When the flame was 1 meter away from him, it was difficult for it to move an inch. Yu Qianzhou knew that he was already giving it his all. He couldn't help but bitterly smile in his heart. This soul formation cultivator was truly extraordinary. Just a simple flute and he couldn't do anything about it. If the other party were to retaliate, Nongzhu really started to fight back. The sound of the flute suddenly became rapid, and Yu Qianzhou immediately felt a strong pressure coming from all directions. The sound barrier ball wrapped in the blue flame was shrinking slowly. It seemed that Nongzhu was going to send the blue flame back to where it came from. Yu Qianzhou wanted to fight back, but he immediately felt that the blood in his body was swelling, and his ears were buzzing. The blood in his chest seemed to be about to spurt out from his throat. His eyes were red and had a tendency to bulge out. He knew that with his cultivation he couldn't fight back at all. It was time to stop or he would be seriously injured even if he didn't die. In a second, the released strong blue flame was quickly sucked back into his body. Chapter 341. After the blue flame faded, the transparent sound barrier disappeared. Nongzhu stopped playing the flute and looked at Yu Qianzhou meaningfully. She smiled and said nothing. She held the purple and black flute in her right hand and twirled it between her slender fingers dexterously. Yu Qianzhou even suspected that this was how he got his title of Mr. Nongzhu. Strange. You were able to hide the blue flame in your body and control it so freely. It's hard to imagine how you managed to cultivate it. Nongzhu's face was full of amazement. He then asked, "Does this blue flame come from Twilight Valley?" Yu Qianzhou silently nodded. Senior's cultivation is truly unfathomable. I overestimated my own abilities and overestimated the power of the blue flame. Nongzhu shook his head and smiled. After this test, I knew that you were only at the nascent soul stage. You don't need to take your defeat to heart. It would be strange if I couldn't even suppress you. To say that my cultivation is unfathomable would be an overestimation. In the entire cultivation world, I can't think of anyone with a more unfathomable cultivation than your master. As for the blue flame, It has already transcended the realm of ordinary flames and can never be overestimated. It's not that the blue flame isn't powerful, but that the difference in cultivation between you and me is too great. Old Bai, did your master ever tell you about the blue flame? Master didn't, but Healy did tell me that this blue flame is one of the legendary 3 true flames. As for the rest I don't know, Yu Qianqiu said. Really? Nongzhu muttered and suddenly smiled. Your master accepted you as a disciple. Is he all right? It seemed that he still didn't know that Healy was dead. Yu Qianqiu bluntly said, I already killed Healy. What? You already killed Healy? Nongzhu cried out. After a moment of silence, he didn't ask Yu Qianqiu why Healy had been killed. He only sighed. It's good that he's dead. It's not easy to cultivate to become a human, and you still have to rely on being a human all day. Isn't that tiring? Let's not talk about him. You know this place because your master told you to come here, right? Yes. Yu Qianqiu nodded. Nongzhu smiled bitterly and said, Your master Shifu must be plotting something against me again. When the time comes, he can just leave, but you want me to stay with you in the realm of demons. It's ridiculous. Did he ask you to come and get to know me so that we can get along in the future? Yu Qianqiu nodded, then shook his head and said, Master did say something like that, but this time he said that he has something for me to do. As for what it is, Master said that when I find you, you will tell me what I should do. Nongzhu, who was shaking her head, was stunned. She held the flute in her hand tightly. After a long time, she looked at Ziyi, who was standing in the purple bamboo forest. She smiled bitterly again and said, Bai Changchun, you worry too much, but why do you always drag me down? As your friend, do I have to worry for nothing? I have nothing to say about you worrying about the demon region and pulling me in. After all, I was the one who pulled you in back then. But do you have time to worry about the whole world? This time you don't even let my disciple go. Hearing this, Yu Qianqiu, who was a bit discouraged, immediately became curious. He couldn't help but ask, Senior, what does my master want me to do? At this moment, Ziyi also walked back and looked at her master curiously. What? Do you want to do it? Nongzhu said angrily, He wants you to die and gamble with your life. Do you want to do it? Damn. Only people with mental problems would do it. Yu Qianqiu subconsciously shrank his head and said with a smile, Senior, you must be joking. How could my master send me to die? Impossible? Nongzhu sneered and said, Then why didn't your master tell you what to do in person, but asked you to ask me? I think he was too embarrassed to tell you. Let me ask you, do you know that your master is going to the East Holy Land? Yes. Healy said that master's lifespan was running out, and he couldn't wait until the next opening day of the Heaven and Earth formation, so master is basically going to go this time. Did your master tell you about the star bead? He did. He said that it was a treasure that even the immortals in the upper world coveted. The owner of it could become a god, and the ancient war started because of it. Nongzhu nodded and said, It is said that there is a solid reason to believe that the star bead didn't fall into anyone's hands, but was left in the territory of the Wuxia Empire. Damn. Yu Qianqiu's eyes lit up and he said with a smile, That's not possible. If such a precious treasure was really left in the territory of Wuxia, it would have fallen into the hands of some big sects or masters in the cultivation world. Do you think people in the cultivation world of Wuxia don't want to look for it? However, after searching for tens of thousands of years, no one had been able to find it. Hence, everyone treated it as a legend and no one bothered to find it again. It should be over by now. But a highly respected fortune-teller from the Di-Rong Kingdom said before his death that the star bead would reappear in the Wuxia Empire in 100 years. Now there is something interesting to watch. All the soul-forming stage cultivators from all countries are eyeing the Wuxia Empire. Yu Qianqiu asked suspiciously, Senior, what does a fortune-teller do? How did he convince everyone with just one sentence? It's similar to fortune-telling in the secular world, but he is more advanced. He doesn't hang out with ordinary people, and his customers are all soul-forming stage cultivators from all countries. That old guy doesn't speak easily, but when he does, he never makes a mistake. How can people not believe him? So a bunch of soul-forming stage cultivators came to Wuxia to join in the fun. But your master is also from Wuxia, and he is the #1 soul-forming stage cultivator. If your master doesn't agree, no one dares to come. Damn. That old guy is really awesome. It's an honor to be his apprentice. Yu Qianqiu blinked and asked, What happened then? Then the news that your master is going to the Eastern Holy Land in a few years got out. A bunch of people were prepared to wait for your master to leave before coming. But your master didn't want it. He took the initiative to send out invitations, inviting all the soul-forming stage cultivators to gather in the Eastern Sea. I was the one who sent the invitations. Your master has a lot of faith, so no one dared to not go. Even I went. In the end, your master is awesome. Facing several hundred soul formation stage experts from various countries, he actually wanted to force everyone to swear a poison oath. The general meaning was that under the situation where he went to the Holy East Land and whether he was alive or dead, the soul formation stage experts present were not allowed to personally participate in this matter and were not allowed to personally visit the Chinese cultivation world. To be honest, although your master is a bit arrogant, this oath isn't too extreme. At least he left some leeway for those people and didn't completely cut off their hope. But with so many people present, your master is going against everyone alone, so naturally there are people who aren't afraid of him. They've started fighting? Yu Qianshou asked excitedly. Just imagine a person facing all the top experts in the world. Just this courage alone is enough to make people's blood boil. Ziyi, who was at the side, also had a strange look in her eyes. When it comes to fighting, I've never seen your master afraid of anyone. Back then, before your master took over the Demon Ghost region, when he was still in the early stage of soul-forming stage, he dared to look for experts all over the world to challenge, and beat some early-stage soul-forming stage cultivators until they were speechless. In the end, I thought of some ways to restrict your master to the Demon Ghost region, and your master became the world's #1 expert through fighting. In the sky above the Eastern Sea, Old Man Bai immediately killed 3 people because of a disagreement. What a good temper. Ziyi suddenly asked, Master, what were the cultivation levels of the 3 soul-forming stage cultivators that Old Man Bai killed? Do ordinary early-stage soul-forming stage cultivators have the guts to do that? Nongzhu asked in reply and continued with a bitter smile. Later, some soul-forming stage cultivators thought your master was too arrogant, so 16 soul-forming stage cultivators joined forces to fight your master, including 2 early-stage soul-forming stage cultivators. Wow. In that battle, I finally understood what it meant to be the #1 expert in the world. With a flip of his hand, he could summon clouds and rain. With a flip of his hand, he could control ice, wind, fire, and water. He could move mountains and drain seas. Even the thunderbolts in the sky were casually turned into heavenly swords by him. It was as if there was nothing in this world that he couldn't borrow. He killed all 16 deity transformation cultivators. Even now, when I think of that scene, my heart still palpitates with fear. In the end, the rest of them didn't dare to cause trouble, and were all forced to swear an oath. Tell me, is your master still human? With such a terrifying cultivation level, how could he still stay in the cultivation world and not ascend to immortality? Chapter 342. Ziyi's eyes became confused when she heard these shocking words. She seemed to be imagining the scene of the fierce battle. Yu Qianshou was shocked and excited, but he didn't think it was strange. Bai Changchun once told him that he had even killed immortals in the upper world, so it was normal for him to have no opponents in the cultivation world. Although those people were forced to make a poison oath, they didn't give up. The poison oath said that they couldn't intervene in person, but it didn't say that they couldn't let others intervene on their behalf. Therefore, the masters of the soul formation stage from various countries sent their disciples or subordinates to Wuxia. However, in the eyes of the Wuxia cultivation world, they were the orthodox cultivation world, and everyone was responsible for defending and protecting their own land. A group of foreign cultivators had no choice but to join forces to gain a foothold in the Wuxia cultivation world. So they found the father and son of the Yan family, who were attacked by the righteous and evil sects. The father and son of the Yan family were in danger, so they were happy to have help from a group of strong cultivators. As Nongzhu spoke, she suddenly said with a teasing smile, Yu Qianshou, I heard that the father and son of the Yan clan were forced into a corner by you. That's why they became enemies with the righteous and demonic Tao. Ziyi looked at him curiously and wondered why it had anything to do with him. Yu Qianshou was thinking about what the Enchantress of Allure said a few days ago. It turned out that there was a reason behind those people's arrival. But after hearing Nongzhu's words, his face suddenly became serious and he denied flatly, Slander, this is pure slander. In fact, the father and son of the Yan family have been enemies with the righteous and evil sects for a long time. I'm just too upright and I really can't stand such despicable behavior, so I revealed the truth. Nongzhu smiled and said, I don't know whether you're upright or not. Anyway, I only know that many cultivators call you the scum of the cultivation world. I guess that once you showed up, many defenders wanted to kill you, especially the Daluo sect. I heard that you killed the son of the head of their sect. Alas, the Daluo sect was probably going crazy at that time. It could be said that they were humiliated by you, so they sent a large number of people and almost turned the Wuxia cultivation world upside down. But even I didn't expect that you would hide in the demon ghost region and become Old Bai's disciple. Who would have thought that? No wonder I couldn't find you anywhere. Although Ze rarely interfered with the matters of the outside world of cultivation, she still knew about some of the higher-ranked sections. This fellow in front of her actually dared to kill the son of the Daluo sect master, which was ranked second in the righteous Dao. Yu Qianqiu's expression is a little unnatural, but he still quibbles. These are all rumors, it's not worth believing. Ah. Nongzhu shook her head and laughed. Look at this. The cultivators from the other countries were forced to go because of your master, and the Yin father and son were forced into a corner by you. Now that these two groups of people are together and Old Man Bai has become your master and disciple, this mess. I just realized that you two master and disciple are really a perfect match. Both of you are extremely daring people. Sigh. Where there is a cause, there is an effect. But what does that have to do with me? You two master and disciple should solve the problem yourselves. What right does Old Man Bai have to drag me into this? This is outrageous. Master, what does Old Man Bai want you to do? Ze asked. Nongzhu frowned and said, the cultivation world of Wuxia is undoubtedly the most powerful country in the entire cultivation world. Although the other countries are not as powerful as Wuxia individually, if they unite, they will definitely be more powerful than Wuxia. Usually these hundreds of countries can't unite, but the temptation of the star bead is too great, and Wuxia is too xenophobic, so they have no choice but to unite. This time, those who came to meet with the Yin father and son are only the vanguard. Once the war starts, strong reinforcements from other countries will come continuously. Although Old Man Bai was in the demon region, deep down he saw himself as a part of Wuxia. However, when he forced everyone to swear an oath in the East Sea, he had also said that he would not interfere in this matter personally, or the oath would be voided. Now, what was originally a matter between soul-forming stage cultivators has become a matter of the whole cultivation world. Sigh. Because of Old Man Bai, the whole cultivation world is going to be in chaos, and the cultivation world of Wuxia has become the target of public criticism. It's in a precarious situation. The three of them had their own thoughts. After a long time, Ze suddenly asked, Master, did you take the oath at that time? Hearing this, Nongzhu's face showed a trace of pride and she said, based on my relationship with Old Man Bai, he won't make things difficult for me. Ze, don't get the wrong idea. It's not because I didn't take the oath, but because he wants me to solve this problem. Even if he wants me to do that, I won't do it. Once I do that, I will become the enemy of all the soul-forming stage cultivators in the world. At that time, Old Man Bai can just leave, and I don't have the ability to fight against all the masters in the world alone. I can live for at least 700 or 800 years and I don't want to die so early. After a pause, she shook her head and said with a bitter smile, but I was still tricked by this old man. Some time ago he came to me and said that this problem was caused by him, and he had to find a way to solve it. Otherwise, once the cultivation world of Wuxia collapses, the armies of the secular world from other countries will come one after another. At that time, the Wuxia Empire will be in chaos, and the common people will be in deep trouble. I don't know how many people will die because of this, so he has to find a way to protect the cultivation world of Wuxia. I know he's a proud and aloof person. Although he's invincible, he doesn't have many friends and I'm his only friend. He's looking for me because he needs my help, but as I said before, it's impossible for me to personally intervene in this matter. So I asked him, what are you going to do now that things have come to this? Yu Qianqiu, do you know what your master said? Damn it. What do you mean by that? Don't tell me you want me to go against the whole world. Isn't that courting death? I won't do it even if you beat me to death. Yu Qianqiu shook his head decisively and said, this is a matter between masters like you. I am just at the gathering vitality stage and I can't guess what you are talking about. His words first removed himself from the problem, but he might not get what he wanted. Nongzhu was stunned. She looked at him with a strange expression and continued, your master said that he has been meditating on the Great Tao for many years, and he seemed to understand something by watching the stars at night. He found the person who can solve this problem. He hopes that I will send my disciple, Ze, to help that person for the sake of our friendship. Master, did Senior Bai specifically ask me to participate in this matter? Ze asked in surprise. It seemed that it was a great honor to be called Bai Changchun. Yu Qianqiu glanced at her and thought, idiot. Nongzhu rolled her eyes at Ziyi and snorted, I refused at that time. Isn't that asking my disciple to die? Who would have thought that the old man would bully me for being soft-hearted? He said that if I didn't help him, he wouldn't care if he would be punished by the heavens. He would slaughter all the deity transformation cultivators in the world, including me. I was shocked at that time. I knew that since he dared to say that, he would definitely do it. I had no choice but to ask him, can the person you mentioned really solve this problem? He said yes, so I gritted my teeth and said yes. After the matter was settled, he told me that he would ask that person to come to me in person, and asked me to tell him about it. He also asked Ziyi to go with him to carry out the task. Speaking of this, Nongzhu suddenly pointed at Yu Qianqiu's nose and flew into a rage. Damn it, I thought it was some great figure that could attract old Bai's attention. I wanted to meet him, but it turned out to be you, Yu Qianqiu. You are the scum of the cultivation world. As a cultivator in the nascent soul stage, how could you, a cultivator in the nascent soul stage, protect the cultivation world of Wuxia? How could you run away? Not only the father and son of the Yen family will not let you go, but many cultivators in the cultivation world of Wuxia will also want to kill you. How could you protect them? It's good enough that you can protect yourself. Asking you to take my disciple out, isn't that a gamble with your life? I finally understand now. Old Bai was afraid that you would die too quickly, so he took my disciple out to be your bodyguard, old bastard. It was probably because he was angry that a handsome old man like him was spouting vulgarities. Chapter 343. Go ahead. Go ahead. I don't want to do that glorious and great thing. If I have to sacrifice, I have to make it worthwhile, right? Do you want me to shed my blood for the world? I have nothing better to do. What does the world have to do with me? Who would do something without benefits? Yu Qianqiu murmured to himself. He lowered his head and let him scold him. However, there was one thing that he also understood. It seemed that this guy knew who he was the moment he heard his name. He was beating around the bush to tease him. In Ziyi's strange eyes, Nongzhu seemed to find that she had lost the demeanor of a master. She said to Yu Qianqiu embarrassedly, tell me what you think. I can see that you don't want to go either. As long as you refuse, I don't think old Bai has anything to say. Then this matter will naturally be settled. Forget it. You don't dare to stand up for me. Do you think I'm an idiot? Old Bai is like a butcher when he gets angry. I'm just a promising young man. I can't even stand a chance against him. Yu Qianqiu coughed and sternly said, since it's an order from my master, how can I not obey as his disciple? I can't do such a thing. Yu Qianqiu is willing to sacrifice my life to relieve master's worries, even if I die 10,000 times. His expression showed that he was resolute to die. His righteous words made Ziyi's disdainful look disappear. A woman's heart was like a needle at the bottom of the ocean. It was hard to understand. Nongzhu winked and twitched her face. She said, He. What a filial disciple. I think the dead headmaster Ong Kwangtsung will be so angry that he will come back to life after hearing your words. Yu Qianqiu turned a deaf ear to these mocking words and acted as if he hadn't heard them at all. Instead, he said, Senior, I believe that my master has other arrangements. He wouldn't let me and Lady Ziyi go into danger alone. In fact, he felt that the name Nongzhu was not a good one. Usually, when he called a senior, he would add the honorific surname in front of the word. For example, Senior Zhang, Senior Liu, and so on. As for Nongzhu, if you give him an honorific surname, he will become Senior Nongzhu. Senior Nong? Yu Qianqiu couldn't bring himself to call him that, so he just called him Senior. Old man Bai has other arrangements? Nongzhu's eyes lit up and she asked suspiciously, How do you know? Did he tell you something? I didn't say anything, but think about it, Senior. Yu Qianqiu explained, although it's not convenient for my master to do it, I can ask someone else to do it. As the torture master of the realm of demons and ghosts, he has thousands of demons and ghosts under his command. Just the ones at the final stage of crossing the heavenly tribulation are frightening. If my master can let me bring them out, I'm confident that I can defeat them no matter how many cultivators from different countries come. Nongzhu looked him up and down and said disdainfully, What kind of sweet dream are you having? Was there something wrong with his brain? You're Bai Changchun's disciple. How can you release the demons and ghosts in the realm of demons and ghosts at will? If your master had a choice, he would rather destroy the cultivation world of Wuxia than release a single demon or ghost. Does it matter? At worst, we can drive them back to the realm of demons and ghosts. Yu Qianqiu said disapprovingly. Nongju looked into the distance with confusion in her eyes, as if she recalled something from the past. After a pause, she shook her head and sighed, "You don't have to mention it again. Your master won't do it. It involves the oath made by the ancient god of war, demon monarch of swords, when he took over the realm of demons and ghosts." Zi asked curiously, "Master, do you know about it?" Nongju looked at her disciple and sighed. She said with a wry smile, "If it weren't for my laziness and unwillingness to bear the heavy responsibility, the realm of demons and ghosts of this generation would not be me instead of old Bai. Speaking of it, I tricked old Bai and trapped him in the realm of demons and ghosts for more than 1,000 years. Otherwise, with his talent, he would have ascended to the immortal realm long ago, and the current situation would not have happened. Speaking of it, it has something to do with me. I'm the one who wronged him first." As he spoke, he looked at Yu Qianshou and sighed, forget it. Since you are determined to follow Master's orders, then I have nothing else to say. Just take it as I owed old man Bai back then. Today I will return it to him." Yu Qianshou had heard about this from Bai Changchun. He knew that Nongju should have been the realm of demons and ghosts of this generation, but he didn't know what had happened during this period. Yu Qianshou couldn't help but blame himself for talking too much when he saw that Nongju had agreed to the matter that she had opposed so firmly because of his words. Previously, Nongju had wanted him to stand up and refuse. Yu Qianshou had said that he was righteous, but he had the same idea. He was eager for Nongju to stand up and refuse. But he had thought it through. It didn't matter. I'll do what I should do when I go out. I can't be so stupid as to hit a stone with an egg. Getting rich quietly was the way of the king. Yu Qianshou, come with me. I have something to say to you. Nongju said hello to him and walked to the purple bamboo forest outside the courtyard. Yu Qianshou was startled. What kind of words couldn't be said here? He looked at Ziyi, who had turned her face to the side. He immediately understood that Nongju wanted to have a private conversation with him and didn't want her disciple to hear it. He was a little curious, so he quickly followed her out. The two stopped on the path of the purple bamboo forest one after the other. A halo expanded from Nongju's body and quickly wrapped Yu Qianshou in it. Nongju turned around and asked, "What are you going to do this time?" "Damn. What's so mysterious that they even need to set up a bounded domain to prevent others from eavesdropping?" Yu Qianshou looked at the halo that surrounded them and said in surprise, "Senior, do you have any good ideas?" He had never thought of working hard, so he naturally couldn't tell her any plans. So he simply pushed the question back. As expected, Nongju stared at him and said, "Should I ask you or you ask me? Since you're ready to follow the master's order, don't you have any plans? I don't think you're a person who is in a hurry to die." Yu Qianshou put on a serious look again and replied, "I really don't have any plans. After leaving the South Sea, I'll immediately go back to Shuntian Island to ask my master. I'll do whatever my master says without any second thoughts." He added in his heart, "If you want to get the truth out of me, just wait. God knows if you'll sell me out later. You and Old Bai have been friends for more than 1,000 years, but I've only known you for a few days. Less than a day. Yu Qianshou, don't play this game with me. In terms of cultivation, I'm not as good as your master, but in terms of judgment, I'm not in the mood to cultivate. I've wandered in the secular world for 1,000 years, and I've seen all kinds of people. I can tell at a glance that you're not a good person. I'm afraid you're thinking in your heart that you'll do whatever you want to do when you go out. You're still trying to hide it from me." Nongju really saw through his thoughts at a glance. But so what if she saw through it? Yu Qianshou was also a rogue in his previous life, so he was thick-skinned. What's more, even if others could guess what he was thinking, there was no evidence. Yu Qianshou waved his hands and said, No, you've wronged me. I'll never have that kind of thought even if you beat me to death. I've never had that kind of thought. Really, I've never had that kind of thought from the beginning to the end." He was very sincere. "You really haven't?" Nongju looked at him seriously and sneered, "Then swear to me now. If you've ever had such a thought, curse yourself to die a horrible death as soon as you leave the South Sea purple bamboo forest. Swear now." "Swear to your grandma." Yu Qianshou cursed in his heart. How could he swear to her? Cultivator's swears would come true. Although he had never seen anyone do it, everyone said so. Who would dare to joke with their lives? Yu Qianshou smiled awkwardly, "You're being suspicious. I'm open-minded, so I don't need to swear. Open-minded my ass." Nongju immediately gave Yu Qianshou a burst chestnut with her flute. Her cultivation was high and her attack was fast. Yu Qianshou didn't even have a chance to dodge. His forehead hurt. He couldn't close his mouth even though he was gritting his teeth. Nongju poked his forehead with her flute and warned, "It's not wrong for you to think like that. You should do that when you go out. You can't do things that you know will lead to death. If you want to save the world, you have to protect your own life first. Otherwise, how can you save the world? Do you understand what I mean?" Yu Qianqiu covered his forehead and suddenly understood, but he still didn't want to leave any evidence in his words. He nodded repeatedly and said, "I won't forget your words. I will try my best to understand them." Nongju looked at him and kept shaking her head. She clicked her tongue and said, "It seems that I didn't misjudge you. You're really not a good guy. That's good. I'll be relieved to hand Ziyi over to you." Then she changed the topic and smiled sinisterly. "Ziyi can protect you when she goes out with you, but you can't let her be in danger. That girl is stubborn and easily stubborn. I warn you, even if you have to die in front of her. Otherwise, I will find you and turn you into ashes even if you have to go to heaven or hell. There's one thing I won't hide from you. Ziyi is my disciple, but she is actually my daughter. Your master also knows this. You'd better be smart when you encounter something outside." "Ah." Yu Qianqiu was stunned and said in surprise, Who will protect who? That's for you to think about. Don't ask me." Nongju didn't care so much. She took the halo back into her body and gave him a fierce look. Then she walked straight back to Ziyi and told her something. Chapter 344. I told you to listen to him and protect his safety, but you still have to put your own safety first. If it's too dangerous, with the transfiguration transposition art that I taught you, it shouldn't be a problem for you to escape alone. Bastard. Bastard. As soon as Yu Qianqiu walked over, he heard Nongju teaching her disciple like this. It was obvious that she was telling her disciple to leave him behind and escape alone when she was in danger. Unfortunately, he had to lower his head under the eaves. Most importantly, he couldn't defeat her, and even her surname was Nongju. Yu Qianqiu stood aside obediently. Ziyi looked at Yu Qianqiu, who was standing obediently at the side, and said with a slight frown, "Master, if I escape alone, this Senior Bai asked me to protect him. If anything happens to him, how would I have the face to meet Senior Bai?" "Are you stupid?" Nongju's voice suddenly became louder. Then, thinking that this girl was stubborn, she calmly pointed at Yu Qianqiu and smiled. "Ziyi, don't look down on this guy. You don't know. I often travel outside, but I know that this guy killed Ong Kwangsung's grandfather and grandson. Even Ong Kwangsung at the last stage of passing calamity couldn't catch him. He killed the son of Daluo sect's leader, and the whole Daluo sect was looking for him. Look, he is still standing here, safe and sound. You should know that he was only in the bearing essence stage at that time. In terms of escaping, he is better than you." "I'll endure it." Yu Qianqiu's eyebrows trembled. Nongju could not help but take a deep breath when she saw the hesitation on her disciple's face. She said calmly and patiently, "Ziyi, what do you think of old Bai's cultivation?" Ziyi's face turned serious. "Elder Bai's power is profound. He is almost like an immortal on earth. No one in the cultivation world can defeat him." "That's right. Why don't you think about it? How can a disciple taught by Old Man Bai be weak? If he really doesn't have any ability, why would Old Man Bai entrust such an important task to him? What's more, you've seen his fire spell. Although your cultivation is at the end of the crossing heavens test, do you think you can catch him?" Nongju sighed. "To be honest, I'm not worried about him, but you? If something happens to you, Master will be the only one left in the southern sea purple bamboo forest. How do you expect Master to live for the next few hundred years? Despicable and shameless. You're even playing the pity card." "I'll continue to endure it." Yu Qianqiu pretended not to hear anything and continued to maintain a straight face. As expected, Ziyi nodded emotionally and said, "Master, don't worry. I will definitely come back to serve you without a single scratch." Good. I'm relieved. Let him be then." Nongju waved her hand sadly and said goodbye. When she turned around, there were tears in her eyes. Nobody knew whether it was real or not. However, Yu Qianqiu gave him a disdainful look. He judged others by himself and felt that this guy must be pretending. Ziyi knelt down and said, "Master, take care. I will come back as soon as possible after completing the task entrusted by Senior Bai." "Do you think you're playing house? Come back as soon as possible?" Yu Qianqiu also bowed to Ziyi. Nongju waved at them with her back facing them, indicating for them to leave. Yu Qianqiu didn't want to stay any longer when he met his nemesis. He unsheathed the long sword on his back, jumped on the sword and jumped into the air. Zi flew directly after him and played a spell in the air. The two of them quickly went far away. Yu Qianzhou's mood instantly became much better when he saw the vast ocean again. Who knew that Nongzhu's voice would suddenly resound in his ears? Stinking brat, I'm warning you. Don't have any designs on my daughter just because she's beautiful. If I find out, I'll castrate you. The voice was so loud that it made his ears numb. He staggered and almost fell off the sword. Zi immediately noticed and asked, Yu Qianzhou, what's wrong? It's very windy. Yu Qianzhou said awkwardly. He knew that the cultivation of the spirit-severing stage was very terrifying. They were not far from the South Sea purple bamboo forest, so he didn't dare to say anything bad about Nongzhu. Zi looked around in confusion. It seemed that she didn't notice how strong the wind was. She turned her head and asked, Yu Qianzhou, I rarely go out. Where are we going now? To the Wuxia cultivation world? No hurry. Let's go back to the demon ghost region to see my master first. We'll listen to his opinion first. Yu Qianzhou said. Okay. Zi nodded heavily. Hearing that they were going to see Bai Changchun, she became solemn as if she was going to see a saint. One of them rode on the sword and the other flew in the air. The woman followed beside Yu Qianzhou and quickly flew to the demon ghost region. Yu Qianzhou looked at Zi from time to time. He found that she and Nongzhu looked similar. However, it seemed that Zi didn't know that Nongzhu was her father. Otherwise, Nongzhu wouldn't have been so sneaky. There might be a big story behind it. They flew over the sea. 2 days later, they entered the gloomy and terrifying demon ghost region. From time to time, all kinds of demons and ghosts with ferocious faces flew over arrogantly. However, when they saw Yu Qianzhou, their faces immediately changed. They all flashed to the side with their hands down and lowered their heads. Yu Qianzhou was expressionless. He just flew forward as if he didn't see them. Zi looked at Yu Qianzhou in surprise from time to time. She didn't expect him to be so powerful in the demon ghost region. On the 1,000-mile lake, once they arrived at Obedient Island, the two of them landed immediately. Lady Mu walked over and called out, Mr. Her gaze then shifted to Zi and she bowed slightly in greeting. Yu Qianzhou asked, Is my master here? Miss Mu nodded with a smile. They immediately walked to the center of the island. Zi looked back at Miss Mu and asked curiously, Who is she? Why haven't I seen her before? Obviously, it wasn't the first time she came to the Qinli Island. Yu Qianzhou replied casually, I'm new here. Bai Changchun was still sitting with his eyes closed. Zi stood at the door obediently. Yu Qianzhou came in and bowed, Master, I'm back. Bai Changchun slowly opened his eyes and stared at Yu Qianzhou with a sharp gaze. Yu Qianzhou felt a little uneasy as he stared at him. Bai Changchun said, Nongzhu has told you everything that happened, right? Yes. Yu Qianzhou said respectfully. Bai Changchun asked again, Are you willing to do this? *CK. Do I dare to refuse in front of you? Yu Qianzhou said, I'll follow your arrangements. Bai Changchun nodded and said to the door, Zi, are you willing to help him? Zi quickly came in respectfully and bowed, Greetings, senior. Zi is willing. Then I won't say much. Yu Qianzhou has a lot of experience in the cultivation world. I'll have to trouble you to help him for the time being. Zi will obey senior's orders. You can go now. Bai Changchun said and slowly closed his eyes again. Yu Qianzhou hurriedly asked, Master, what should we do this time? Don't you have any instructions? However, Bai Changchun didn't say anything. After waiting for a while, the two had to leave obediently. Since they were told to leave now, they didn't dare to stay any longer. Not long after they arrived, they broke through the sky and left. Not long after they left, Yu Qianzhou heard Bai Changchun's voice again. Zi is actually Nongzhu's biological daughter. Nongzhu treats her like a pearl in his palm. Now, among all the cultivators in the Huashan realm in the world, Nongzhu is the only one who can stay out of this, and he is the only one who can help you. However, he must have a lot of scruples. The reason why I want Zi to help you is not that she can help you much, but that Nongzhu will not leave her daughter alone. I think she will help you at the critical moment. *CK. So that's how it is. They are really cunning. They are really experienced guys. Yu Qianzhou glanced at Zi and continued to fly forward. Zi had no clue, so she could only follow him. Yu Qianzhou had a toothache. With a follower following him, it would be difficult for him to teleport in the future. But to his relief, Bai Changchun didn't give him any instructions. He could only understand that he could do whatever he wanted, which was exactly what he wanted. In that case, he didn't have to rush. He wanted to go to Yuji's place. He had been thinking about the legendary black fire and resurrection grass in the 9th Netherworld cave. Chapter 345. The two of them flew out of the Valley of Evil Wind. Yu Qianqiu landed on his sword and Ziyi followed. She asked in confusion, "Aren't we going to the Wuxia cultivation world? Why did you stop?" Yu Qianqiu pointed at the valley where the phosphorescence was faintly discernible and said, "Looking for something to prepare for going to the Wuxia cultivation world." Hearing him say so, Ziyi didn't ask any more. She followed him into the valley against the gusts of Yin wind. Before they got close, they heard someone shouting in the depths of the Yin fog, "Who are you? How dare you break into my Valley of Evil Wind? Stop and reply." Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu shouted his name and continued to stride forward. The Yin fog in the valley rolled and a horn sounded. The Yin fog dispersed to both sides, and the stairs leading to the valley appeared. As the two of them approached, they saw a group of armored generals behind Yu Ji quickly coming to welcome them. They lined up in 2 rows and made way for them. They cupped their fists and said, "Greetings, mister." "Welcome, mister. I welcome you," Yu Ji said with a happy face. Suddenly, she noticed that there was a woman in purple beside him looking around curiously. She didn't look scared at all. Obviously, she wasn't an ordinary person, so she bowed to greet them. "I'm here to visit sister-in-law. I don't dare to trouble sister-in-law to welcome me." Yu Qianqiu raised his hand to help her up. He cupped his fists and smiled at the generals on both sides. Most of the generals knew him, and when they saw him call Yu Ji sister-in-law, they immediately had a good impression of him, and all of them smiled. Ziyi heard Yu Qianqiu call Yu Ji sister-in-law. She couldn't help but look at Yu Ji a few more times. A group of armored generals surrounded the 3 of them and walked to the Ghost King's Hall. It was still the magnificent Ghost King's Hall. However, the man who sang and cried every night was already dead, leaving only a woman in charge. After the group of people entered the Great Hall, Yu Ji invited Yu Qianqiu to sit on the throne. Yu Qianqiu did not stand on ceremony. With his current status, this seat was already set in stone. If he did not sit on it, no one would dare to sit on it. The former was about to call for a banquet when Yu Qianqiu glanced at Ziyi, who stood beside the throne. He waved his hand and said, "Sister-in-law, don't bother. I'm here for an important matter. I don't need to attend the banquet." Yu Ji also looked at Ziyi thoughtfully. Then she smiled and said, "We'll do as Mr. says. I wonder what Mr. is here for? Can we help you?" After saying that, she glanced at the generals below with a smile. The generals of the Ghost King level immediately said, "Mister, if you need us, just tell us. Then I won't stand on ceremony with you." Yu Qianqiu crossed his legs and said with a smile, "You may not know, but the cultivation world outside the demon ghost region is in chaos. My master ordered me and this lady in Ziyi to go out and resolve it. I'm here to take 2 things. These 2 things will be of great help to me on this trip." Yu Ji, who was standing on the other side, said doubtfully, "I don't know what it is that Mr. is interested in. As long as it is in the Evil Wind Valley, I will give it to Mr." Yu Qianqiu stood up, looked at the crowd and said slowly, "The resurrection grass and the netherworld fire seed." The so-called netherworld fire seed was the black fire, one of the 3 true fire. He had learned this name from Miss Mu, because the demon ghosts didn't know about the 3 true fire. But when Yu Qianqiu asked, Miss Mu said that there was a kind of black fire in the 9th netherworld cave, which was called the netherworld fire seed. Silence. The Ghost King's Hall instantly became quiet. Ziyi looked at the crowd expressionlessly. She didn't know why the 2 things mentioned by Yu Qianqiu would cause such a reaction. Was there anyone in the demon ghost region who dared to refuse something that the disciple of Senior Bai asked for? After a long time, Yu Ji said with a wry smile, "The 2 things that Mr. wants do exist here, but I'm afraid that no one in the entire demon ghost region has the ability to get them, let alone us. To be honest, Mr., the torture commissioner has also come to the 9th netherworld cave to get the resurrection grass, but even with his high cultivation he couldn't go deep into the cave unless." Ziyi was surprised. She didn't expect that there was a place in the world that Bai Changchun couldn't go to. Yu Qianqiu was silent for a while. He knew that Bai Changchun wasn't omnipotent. Bai Changchun also couldn't go to the mysterious place under the 1,000-mile lake, and he had heard from Yu Ji about the 9th netherworld cave. Because it was a passage to the underworld, it had a special characteristic and not everyone with high cultivation could go there. Yu Qianqiu frowned and said, "Sister-in-law, do you mean that only the cultivation of the Ghost Saint late stage can go there?" "That's right." Yu Ji's face turned serious and said, "The journey to the netherworld is a one-way trip. It burns away all vitality and humans and ghosts walk different paths. Even if the cultivation of the Ghost Saint late stage wants to go to the bottom of the cave, he must be baptized by the netherworld flame. Crossing the netherworld flame sea is the door to the 9th netherworld. At that point, there will be no vitality in the human world. Once he returns to the human world, there will be a catastrophe to annihilate him instantly, so it is said that there is no return. Think about our cultivation, not to mention the netherworld flame sea. I'm afraid that we can't even withstand the evil strong wind in front of us, and our souls will be blown away before we reach the halfway point. I still want to go and have a look. Yu Qianzhou's words were shocking, and the ghost generals below were in an uproar. When Ziyi heard that the 9th netherworld cave was so powerful that even Bai Changchun couldn't go, her face changed. She didn't know why this guy was so overconfident and insisted on trying. She thought that she wanted to protect him, so if he went, she would have to go with him. Actually, she didn't know what Yu Qianzhou was thinking. The cultivation world suddenly had such a big change, and he didn't know when this matter would end. He was afraid that the life insurance of his parents, who were mortals, wouldn't be able to wait until then. So he wanted to pick the resurrection grass to refine the 7 orifices exquisite pill to extend his parents' lives. There was also the black fire, which was ranked higher than the blue fire. Since it was ranked higher than the blue fire, it must be even more powerful. If he encountered any unfavorable situation, he would be able to deal with it. Since Mr. insists, then I will go to the entrance first. At that time, Mr. will know that what Yuji said is true. Yuji said helplessly. Thank you, sister-in-law. Yu Qianzhou nodded and suddenly said, Is the old man Yan Tua that sister-in-law told me about last time still alive? Yuji smiled and said, Since Mr. has instructed, I will naturally leave him alive for Mr. to deal with. Good. Yu Qianzhou clapped and said with a smile, I believe that sister-in-law didn't tell him whether his son is alive or dead. He knew that Yuji was a smart woman, so if Yan Tua said that he said his son was still here, Yuji would make plans. As expected, Yuji said with a smile, Since Mr. said his son is still here, I will naturally smooth things over for Mr. Ziyi was a little confused by the strange question and answer between the two. Yu Qianzhou laughed heartily and said, Back then I had some unresolved grievances with him on Fuxian Island. Today is the time to write it off. I will have to trouble sister-in-law to invite him over. I believe he will be very willing to go to the 9th netherworld cave to find his son. I also want to see how powerful the 9th netherworld cave is. Yuji giggled and nodded to the people below. A general cupped his fists and left the Ghost King Hall. To these people, the life and death of a cultivator was really nothing. At this moment, no matter how stupid Ziyi was, she understood what Yu Qianzhou was trying to do. He was obviously trying to trick others to die so that they could scout for him. She immediately said coldly, Yu Qianzhou, you're not fit to be Senior Bai's disciple if you act like this. What do you know, lass? Old man Bai is the one who kills people like flies. Yu Qianzhou snorted and sat back on the throne. He sneered and said, Ziyi, don't forget what my master and your father said before we came. It seems that I am the one in charge between you and me. If you think that there is something wrong with my actions, you can go back to Obedient Island and complain to my master. Say that you are not ashamed to be associated with me and withdraw from this matter. You. Ziyi's face was as cold as frost. She was so angry that she couldn't speak. However, she couldn't really say such words to Bai Changchun. Bai Changchun asked her to do this and she felt very honored. How could she give up halfway? And Yu Qianzhou also saw this, so he said such words. Chapter 346. Yan Tua, whom Yu Qianzhou hadn't seen for a long time, had arrived. He was once an elder of Fuxian Island, but he was now a prisoner. He was lifted up like a little chick. The Ghost King threw him to the ground and his armor clanked. He cupped his fists and retreated to the side. Yan Tua staggered to his feet. His hair was white and messy and his clothes were tattered. There were blood stains on his torn clothes, and it looked like he had been whipped. He looked like he had aged a few decades in an instant, and he didn't look like the elder who ordered people around. Yu Qianzhou looked down coldly. If he hadn't been too arrogant in the past, he wouldn't have been tricked by a few jokes. However, Yu Qianzhou didn't expect him to age so much. He had taken good care of himself in the past, but now his hair was all white, and his face was full of wrinkles. If he didn't know who he was, he wouldn't have recognized him. It should be known that the higher one's cultivation base was, the slower they aged. How could this be? After pondering for a while, Yu Qianzhou understood. At such a young age, his dantian was sealed, and his cultivation base was sealed for several months. Without the nourishment from the circulation of true origin, he naturally aged faster. Moreover, he was tortured. He didn't know how Yuji tormented him after she understood that it was fine as long as he didn't kill him. Like an old man over 100 years old in the secular world, Yen Tuo staggered around the hall. Finally, his lifeless eyes came into contact with the ice-cold gaze of the person sitting on the throne, and he abruptly realized that it was not the gaze of the smiling woman. Then he looked at the entire face. Yen Tuo's pupils shrank and he yelled with a hoarse voice, "Yu Qinsho, it's you?" He stumbled a few steps forward, but a ghost general immediately took a step forward and shouted, "How dare you!" He slapped him back to the ground. Ziyi couldn't bear to watch any longer. She clenched her teeth and said to Yu Qinsho, "If you want him to die, just say the word. Why do you have to torture him like this?" Yu Qinsho looked at her coldly and didn't say anything to her. Instead, he said to the people below, "Old man Yen Tuo, we haven't seen each other for many years. I didn't think that we would meet again. Where did the arrogance that you used to order me around go?" Yen Tuo got up again, looked around and then looked at the person sitting high up on the throne. Instantly he understood everything. The person in charge now was Yu Qinsho. There was a trace of blood at the corner of Yen Ta's mouth as he shook his white hair and smiled bitterly. "Looks like I've been deceived by you. You have enmity with my son, so how could you not kill him? I'm sure my son has already died miserably in your hands." Yu Qinsho sneered and said, "I never lie. If I say your son is here, then your son is naturally here. Besides, you are a dying man, so there is no need for me to lie to you." As soon as he said this, Ziyi immediately looked at him suspiciously. As for the generals and Yuji, their expressions were indescribable. They knew the ins and outs of Yu Qinsho, but they didn't expect the dignified disciple of the Devil Regent's torturer to lie without batting an eyelid. Moreover, he did it so openly in front of so many people. If they didn't know about it, it would be hard for them not to believe it. Yen Ta's murky eyes suddenly lit up and he immediately said, "Yu Qinsho, where is my son? Can you let me see him?" "Of course, no problem at all." Yu Qinsho waved his hand in a rather forthright manner. In the end, Yuji and the others were stunned. They didn't know where he was going to find a son to meet. Unexpectedly, he said, "However, your son went against me in every aspect in the supporting Immortal Island, so it's hard for me to vent my anger. Now that both of you are here, there has to be someone left to appease me." "What do you want?" Yen Ta asked. "It's very simple. I never do things that are ruthless." Yu Qinsho stood up and said coldly, "I just arrived here today and I'm here to settle this matter. Either I remove the seal on you, let you go, or I kill your son. Or you stay and continue to suffer and I'll let your son go. Only one of you can live. Make your choice now." The group of ghost generals instantly became interested, and their gazes focused on Yen Ta. Yen Ta hesitated for a moment, then immediately replied, "Yu Qinsho, I hope you keep your word. Stay and you let my son go." The atmosphere in the hall instantly became heavy, and the group of ghost generals immediately looked at Yen Tuo in a different way. It was admiration. Damn it. What a deep father-son relationship. Yu Qinsho glanced at Ziyi, who was moved, and he was rather unhappy. He wanted to watch the dark side of human nature and teach this girl a lesson. He wanted her to know what it meant to be a bastard who could see through human nature. He wanted her to know that a pitiful person must have a hateful side, so that she wouldn't be disobedient in the future. Now she would probably become even worse. Yu Qinsho didn't know that Yen Ta had begged people to accompany him to the Demon Ghost region, but when people heard about the Demon Ghost region, they became timid and no one was willing to come. Therefore he knew that his chances of survival were slim, but in order to save his son, he still came. He was already prepared to die. Although you treated your son well, you didn't teach him well and you harmed yourself and your son. You still have to pay the price. Yu Qinsho squinted his eyes and said in a deep voice, "Remove the seal on his dantian, and let him go to the cave to pick up his son. Let them go together." His words sounded nice, but everyone understood that Yu Qinsho had already sentenced Yen Ta to death. Yuji nodded to the people below, and someone immediately went to remove the seal on Yen Ta. Ziyi bit her lips and didn't say anything. When Yen Tuo heard this, he froze in place. Only when his body trembled and the vital energy in his dantian surged out and quickly circulated to nourish his almost withered body did he believe it was true. He looked at Yu Qinsho in a daze. Yu Qinsho took out a few spirit pills and threw them out. He said, "Recover quickly. Later I will pick up your son and leave together." After the seal was removed, Yen Ta immediately became more spirited. He sucked the spirit pills into his palm, stared at Yu Qinsho and said slowly, Yu Qianqiu, I won't tell anyone about what happened in the demon ghost region, or else I will be punished by heaven. Then he put the spirit pills into his mouth and sat down cross-legged. No one in the hall spoke and they all looked at Yen Ta. Knowing his fate, everyone's expression was one of sympathy or pity. Yu Qianqiu silently put his hands behind his back. He really wanted to let Yen Ta go, but now was not the time to show his soft side. At this time, it was necessary to sacrifice a person to show his indifference, because there might be a day when he would take over the demon ghost region. Demons and ghosts couldn't be suppressed unless they were strong. Bai Changchun's actions were very effective, and it was also a warning. In the canyon that was less than a dozen miles away from the Ghost King's hall, gloomy clouds and fog were rolling. The temperature was close to freezing, and the howling wind made strange sounds. Not even a blade of grass grew in the surroundings. At the bottom of the Black Canyon, a trumpet-shaped hole suddenly appeared. It was wide on the outside and narrow on the inside. From the traces on the hole, it could be seen that it was caused by the cold, bone-chilling wind that blew out of the hole for many years. On the top of the cliff opposite the hole, a group of people stood in a row. In the middle were Yu Qianqiu, Yu Jizi, and Yen Ta. Chapter 347. There's a top-grade spirit stone mine inside, and your son is mining here. Perhaps to make his words more convincing, Yu Qianqiu took out a purple spirit stone and played with it in his hand. After seeing it, Yen Tua was a little surprised, and then he looked at the hideous cave entrance and said, "The top-grade spirit stone is almost extinct in the cultivation world, but I heard that it appeared in the grand auction last time. I didn't expect there to be a top-grade spirit stone mine here. Do you want to go in and look for it yourself, or do I have to help you get it out?" As he spoke, Yu Qianqiu clenched his fist and in one breath, he sucked up all the spiritual qi in the top-grade spirit stone in his hand. Then there was a muffled sound in his palm, and as he opened his palm, a gust of chilly wind swept away a cloud of dust. Yen Tua did not dare to trouble him. He thought that he would send someone to bring his son out. After all, it was very difficult to find someone in such a big cave. It was not good to trouble others in the current situation. However, when he saw the chilly wind blowing at the cave entrance, Yen Tua frowned. How could there be anyone mining in this kind of cave? He felt that something was wrong, but he could not figure it out at the moment. There's a whole other world inside. Yu Qianqiu seemed to have seen through his concerns, and his tone was a little disdainful, as if he was telling him that if he wanted to kill him, it would only take a word, there was no need to go through so much trouble. A long sword shot out and stopped in the void of the canyon in front of his feet. Yu Qianqiu stepped on the flying sword and flew towards the cave entrance first. Yen Tuo's expression was a little awkward. If he wanted to kill him, it would only take a word, there was really no need to go through so much trouble. He stomped on the ground and chased after Yu Qianqiu. When the others saw that Yu Qianqiu suddenly flew towards the cave entrance, their expressions changed greatly, and the group of ghost generals looked at Yu Ji. Yu Ji's face turned slightly pale. She had made it very clear to him, and she really didn't understand why he had to take such a risk. If something happened to the punishment envoy's disciple here, she might also lose her life. Although she was afraid, she believed that there must be a reason why Yu Qianqiu dared to do this, because he didn't look like someone who would suffer losses. Zi bit her lips. Although she didn't like Yu Qianqiu's actions, it was her duty to protect him. No matter how scared she was, she couldn't run away. Just as he was about to fly over, Yu Ji grabbed his wrist and shook her head slightly. As soon as Yu Qianqiu landed at the cave entrance and put away his flying sword, a cold wind suddenly blew out from the cave, blowing right into his face. He felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar, and his body slowly stiffened. The temperature here was too low. No matter what, he was still a nascent soul cultivator, but he didn't expect to fall into an ice cave. He couldn't even circulate his true essence to resist, and even his soul felt like it was swaying, and his mind was faintly dazed. Yu Qianqiu was shocked. He bit the tip of his tongue and woke up. He didn't expect that he couldn't resist at the entrance of the cave with his cultivation. This ninth netherworld cave really lived up to its name. In an instant, a thin layer of green flame ignited around his body, wrapping his whole body in it. His stiff body immediately returned to normal. It seemed that as one of the three true flames, the green flame was not to be trifled with. When the cold wind with a faint black aura touched the green flame, it made a sizzling sound, like water splashing into a pan of oil. Yu Qianqiu suddenly discovered that while the green flame was resisting the cold wind, he seemed to be consuming it as well, but the rate of consumption was very slow. Yu Qianqiu was stunned for a moment, then immediately became happy. Although the green flame was being consumed, it could obviously resist the cold wind from the netherworld. With the large amount of green fire elements stored in his body, he might be able to go deep into the cave. However, he seemed to have forgotten that he was at the entrance of the 9th netherworld cave, and the situation behind was unknown. It seemed that it was a bit too early to be happy. Yu Qianqiu turned around and looked at Yen Tuo, who followed him. Yen Tuo obviously didn't expect the cold wind to be so powerful, but his cultivation was obviously much higher than Yu Qianqiu's. Shivering, a transparent ball of light immediately rose from his body and enveloped him. He released his protective aura to resist the cold wind. With the protection, he had the mood to look around. After seeing Yu Qianqiu wrapped in the green flame, Yen Tuo was a little surprised. Obviously he had never seen it before. Moreover, this flame seemed to be able to subdue the cold wind. The strong wind actually couldn't extinguish it and couldn't move it at all. In fact, even Yu Qianqiu himself didn't know the reason. In fact, with the high temperature of the green flame, it was similar to an item of extreme yang, which could subdue yin items. The cold wind that blew out from the 9th netherworld cave was exactly yin qi, which could subdue yin items. Yu Qianqiu made an inviting gesture to him. Yen Tuo nodded his head, but he looked at the gloomy cave suspiciously. However, he already had no way out. He could only hope that Yu Qianqiu didn't lie to him, or else he would die no matter what. When he walked into the cave, his eyes immediately became incomparably dark, and he couldn't see the road in front of him at all. However, the green flame that appeared behind him indicated that Yu Qianqiu had also followed him in. Yen Tuo instantly felt a lot more at ease. He felt that his thoughts were a little unnecessary, because he really couldn't think of any benefits that the other party would gain from lying to him. The people on the opposite cliff all stared at the entrance of the cave without blinking, watching the two gradually disappear inside. The deeper they went, the more shocked they became. The cold wind was no longer blowing in all directions like at the entrance of the cave. It actually had a tendency to gradually solidify, hitting Yen Tuo's upstanding qi. With a piu-piu sound, the fire on Yu Qianqiu's body immediately rose a little. Otherwise, the green flame wouldn't be able to offset the attack of the cold wind in time and would hit his body. At the same time, Yu Qianqiu carefully stood behind Yen Tuo's upstanding qi, trying his best to let Yen Tuo, who was walking in front, resist the cold wind. As expected, the consumption of the green fire element was greatly reduced. The passage inside the cave suddenly turned, and the two of them stopped at the same time. Before they could turn the corner, they heard a rapid whistling sound coming from inside. The chilly wind whirled out of the passage so quickly that it almost made them lose their footing. This was not the case of the wind blowing directly out of the passage, so one could imagine how strong the wind inside was. Yen Tuo looked back and saw that Yu Qianqiu's expression was indescribable. His heart instantly turned cold. Why did it seem like this was also his first time here? "Let's go," Yu Qianqiu said, but he realized that his voice couldn't travel far at all. It was as if the wind had blown it to the back, so he shouted again and made a hand gesture. Yen Tuo nodded with a grave expression. The upstanding qi on his body instantly became a lot more turbid. Clearly he had strengthened his defense. Yu Qianqiu continued to follow behind him, and the two of them turned in with heavy steps. The strong wind that carried a black baleful aura attacked them, and the two of them were shocked once again. Yen Tuo felt that the upstanding qi that was supported by his quintessential essence was rapidly depleting under the attack of the cold wind and the baleful aura. Although Yu Qianqiu was hiding behind him, he could also feel the rapid depletion of the green flame. He immediately increased the output of the fire element. He was slightly better off as he had sufficient fire element reserves in his body. He only needed to use the green flame to defend, and the consumption of his quintessential essence would not be much. If it really did not work out, he could still instantly hide back in Utopia. Therefore he was not afraid of any danger at all. However, Yen Tuo's expression changed drastically. If the quintessential essence in his body was completely depleted, just how powerful would the cold wind and baleful aura be? No one had personally experienced it before, and from the looks of it, it was definitely not simple. The result could be easily imagined. The path of the cave started to go downwards, and the two of them continued forward. The cold wind became stronger and the black baleful aura became thicker. Yu Qianqiu's green flame and Yen Tuo's quintessential essence were also being depleted faster and faster. However, the cave was so deep that they could not see the bottom. They had no idea when they would reach the end. In the darkness, the two of them were as small as fireflies, feeling their way forward carefully. After walking for an unknown period of time, Yen Tuo's face gradually turned pale. He felt that there was not much quintessential essence left in his body, and the end seemed to be far away. Yu Qianzhou also realized that something was wrong with his situation and immediately guessed the reason. Although he had wanted Yen Tuo to block the disaster at the front, he did not want Yen Tuo to die so early. He touched the storage bag at his waist, wanting to give Yen Tuo some spirit pills to recover his quintessential essence so that Yen Tuo could hold on for a while longer. However, he realized that it was difficult to even communicate in this situation. It was really troublesome to give him spirit pills. If he gave the spirit pills to Yen Tuo, they would definitely be blown away by the wind before they reached his hands. However, if he were to exchange them with his opponent who had a higher cultivation than him, he would definitely notice that something was wrong and guess that he was lying to him. If the other party suddenly launched a sneak attack, it was better to let Yen Tuo exhaust himself until he had no more energy to attack before giving him the spirit pills. Yu Qianzhou could not help but be on guard. As expected, Yen Tuo suddenly turned around. Under the illumination of the green fire, his faint green expression was somewhat sinister as he shouted, "Yu Qianzhou, this is not a spirit stone mine at all. My son Yen Shu could not possibly mine here. Why did you trick me to come here? What kind of damn place is this?" As he was speaking with the wind, Yu Qianzhou could hear every single word clearly. The green fire suddenly expanded by a lot. Yu Qianzhou raised his brows and sneered. It was very difficult for his voice to be transmitted when he spoke with the wind in his direction. Moreover, with his current cultivation, it was impossible for him to transmit his voice. Thus, he raised his hand that was wrapped in the green fire and extended a finger to write in the air. The words "Ninth Netherworld Cave" appeared in the green fire. Immediately after, he waved his hand and the 4 green fire words were put away. At this moment he could not waste the green fire. Since Yen Tuo was able to assume the position of an elder on supporting Immortal Island, he wasn't an ignorant person. After he saw the words Ninth Hell Cave, he pondered for a moment before his expression instantly changed, and he seemed as if he'd never imagined that he would come to this place of legend one day. He immediately gritted his teeth and said, "In that case my son Yen Shu is long gone. He has a grudge against you. Did he die in your hands?" As he said that, his hand subconsciously touched his waist. He must be muddle-headed. Why the F***ck would he touch if he had nothing? Yu Qianzhou looked at his empty waist and sneered again as he extended his finger and wrote a few words. "Do you understand now? Isn't it a little too late?" His finger was like chalk and his palm was like a blackboard eraser. The moment he wrote, it was immediately erased. Yen Tuo only remembered that on the day he was captured, his storage bag had already been confiscated. On the other hand, Yu Qianzhou clapped and pulled his palms together. A green flying sword appeared between his palms. Yu Qianzhou used the sword as a pen and quickly wrote a line of words, "Old thing, you are not my opponent now. If you don't want to die, continue to lead the way." When Yen Tuo heard this, he did not care how the green flying sword appeared. He suddenly shook his head of white hair and laughed wildly. His laughter was filled with indescribable grief and indignation. He then clenched his fists and said, "Don't want to die? Yu Qianzhou, don't try to lie to me. We are already deep in the cave. Even if you let me leave now, I won't be able to make it out. Today I will die no matter what. But even if I die, I won't let you be happy." Chapter 348. I'd like to see how you're going to make me unhappy. A row of green words appeared again, full of contempt. Yen Tuo laughed wildly. The protective aura around his body slowly disappeared, and his flesh and blood started to shrink. In the blink of an eye, he was only skin and bones. On the contrary, his abdomen started to swell up. This scene caused Yu Qianzhou's pupils to shrink. He could no longer look down on Yen Tuo. He immediately thought of something terrifying, self-destructing his elixir field. For cultivators, the elixir field was the energy storage of the entire body. The consequences of self-destructing the elixir field could be imagined. After reaching the nascent soul stage, the nascent soul in the elixir field was formed from pure energy. At this time, the 3 souls and 7 spirits in the body were gathered in the nascent soul, not in the body. Therefore, for cultivators who reached the nascent soul stage, ordinary external invasions wouldn't cause any substantial harm. At most, it would hurt the body and it wouldn't be difficult to heal it. However, self-destruction after reaching the nascent soul stage was more powerful, but at the same time, it would also destroy the 3 souls and 7 spirits. In other words, if a cultivator of the nascent soul stage self-destructed, it meant that he wouldn't even have the chance to reincarnate. If a cultivator of the nascent soul stage self-destructed, there would be a next life. Yen Tuo's cultivation was in the early stage of the tribulation stage. Although he had used up a lot of his true essence, the explosion of the nascent soul stage would be terrible. Yu Qianqiu definitely wouldn't have it easy. From the looks of it, he was afraid that the explosion wouldn't be powerful enough, so he gathered all the energy in his abdomen. If it was an ordinary person, the hole was only 10 feet wide. Under such circumstances, it would be difficult to move forward or backward. Being detonated by a cultivator of the tribulation stage was equivalent to a heavy bomb exploding next to them. Fortunately, Yu Qianqiu wasn't an ordinary person. He had a third way of retreat, which was utopia. However, it was also quite frustrating for him. It wasn't easy for him to get here, and he didn't have the chance to leave a teleportation coordinate. Once Yen Tuo self-destructed, he would have to start all over again. Damn it. I've always thought that I'm ruthless, but today I've met someone even more ruthless. It's fine if he doesn't want to live in this life, but there's actually someone who doesn't even want to live in the next life. Yu Qianqiu's expression twitched. The flying sword in his hand quickly drew a few words. "You're crazy." The skeleton-like Yen Tuo let out a dry and hoarse voice. He laughed cruelly and said, "It's you, Yu Qianqiu, who has gone too far." As he spoke, the protective upstanding qi outside his body suddenly retracted into his body. He was going to self-destruct. Bastard. Bastard. Yu Qianqiu closed his eyes and shrank his head. Just as he was about to flash back to utopia, he heard painful sounds coming from Yen Tuo's throat. Before Yu Qianqiu left, he opened his eyes to take a look. Immediately, his eyes widened and he didn't want to leave. As it turned out, Yen Tuo, who had withdrawn his protective upstanding qi, was immediately attacked and eroded by the chilly wind and the black spirits. The clothes on his body disappeared like ashes, followed by the hair on his body. Then, his skin was shaved off from his back as if he was taking off his clothes. Then, the bloody muscles that had just been revealed slid off his bones and were blown away. Yu Qianqiu, who had been hiding at the back, immediately received the reward of Yen Tuo's flesh. Then there were his organs, liver and lungs. It was really disgusting. The green fire outside Yu Qianqiu's body surged, turning everything that came into contact with it into ashes. Yen Tuo's tenaciously standing skeleton immediately withered when it came into contact with the black spirits. Under the attack of the black spirits and chilly wind, it was torn into pieces and blown away with the wind. He died just like that? What the hell is this? Yu Qianqiu couldn't help but shiver. Anyone who saw someone die like that before their eyes would also shudder. He looked around and realized that he was the only one left. Only the shrill whistling of the wind lingered in his ears. Seeing that the chilly wind and the evil spirits were so powerful, he also had some thoughts of retreating. But a wave of determination rose from the bottom of his heart. He gritted his teeth and continued to walk forward without hesitation. However, there were 2 green flying swords in each of his hands, and the green fire outside his body had grown a lot bigger. The people on the cliff outside the cave looked solemn and uneasy. The bearded Cai Zhangfei walked a few steps to the front of Yu Ji and cupped his fists, saying, "Madam, we can't just stand by and watch anymore. While Mr. hasn't gone too deep, I would like to go and call Mr. back. If it's any later, I'm afraid it'll be difficult for us to find Mr. If that's the case, we'll—" He didn't finish his sentence, but everyone understood what he was trying to say. If Yu Qianqiu died, the torturer would be enraged and no one would be able to escape responsibility. Everyone's gaze fell on Yu Ji. Yu Ji hesitated for a while and finally nodded, saying, "Zhangling Fuzhe, listen up." Yes. A burly general also came out and cupped his fists together with Cai Zhangfei. It turned out that Cai Zhangfei's surname was really Zhang, but he wasn't called Zhangfei but Zhangling. "I order the 2 of you to bring Mr. back quickly. If Mr. is unwilling, you can bring him back forcefully if necessary. I'll bear all the consequences." Yu Ji ordered decisively. She was indeed a woman who had followed Meng Yan for many years. At this time she finally showed her strong female side. "Yes, sir." After the 2 of them received the order, they nodded to each other. They covered their bodies with Gang Qi and immediately turned into 2 shadows. They shot into the 9 Netherworld cave on the opposite side, and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Based on this point alone, the cultivation of these 2 people was obviously much higher than Yu Qianqiu and Yen Tuo. "I'll go too." Ziyi had just finished speaking when she was pulled back by Yu Ji again. Yu Ji shook her head helplessly and said, "Miss, from your conversation with Mr., I can tell that your identity is not ordinary. If anything happens to you, I won't let you in no matter what. Yuji gently waved her hand at the 9th Netherworld cave. Immediately, 10 generals of the Ghost King flew out and directly landed at the entrance of the 9th Netherworld cave. Faint black light balls surged out from their bodies and wrapped around themselves, protecting the entire 9th Netherworld cave. The well-trained army was instantly displayed. Z looked at them silently. She knew that she couldn't deal with the Ghost King alone. She sighed and gently broke free from Yuji's hand. She stood there quietly and didn't say a word. After walking for a while, Yu Qianqiu realized that this cave seemed to only have strong yin winds and evil spirits. There weren't any other dangers. Instead of slowly walking and exhausting his energy, it was better. After Yu Qianqiu had an idea, he gritted his teeth and jogged. The black miasma became denser and denser, and the consumption of fire elements became faster and faster. He didn't know how far underground it was. After jogging for nearly a kilometer, the tunnel turned again. Just as he turned, he felt the pressure suddenly increase and the wind became stronger. He only heard a strange F***ck cry, and the moment the sound left his mouth, he was blown back by the wind. He dodged and jumped here and there, rolling and crawling back to the turning. A group of black wind blades shot out and hit the stone wall at the turning. With a series of clanging sounds, they dispersed into black miasma and were carried away by the yin wind. Yu Qianqiu hid in a corner and stared blankly at the black fiend that had been blown away. He understood. So the black fiend they had encountered on the way here were formed by the dissipation of these black wind blades. He wanted to release his divine sense to check, but he didn't dare because he had already tried it once before. The evil spirits could actually corrode divine sense and make him cry out in pain. It was really strange. After waiting for a while, several waves of wind blades flew out one after another. There would be a wave every few seconds. After calculating the time, he took out a piece of dark steel and threw it out. With a few dang 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 sounds, the whole piece of dark steel was cut into a few pieces and fell down. It rolled on the ground and flipped over and was blown away by the yin wind. **CK. What the hell were the wind blades formed by the black miasma? They cut dark steel like cutting tofu. It was too fierce. Who could pass through here? Yu Qianqiu felt gloomy. His gaze fell on the dark stone wall and he was stunned. The stone wall here seemed to be different from the previous ones. Under the illumination of the green fire, it seemed to have an additional metallic luster. Yu Qianqiu's eyes lit up. He took out the Ghost King's token that Yuji gave him years ago from his storage bag. Comparing the two, it was exactly the same. This passage was actually formed by the dark iron structure. Yu Qianqiu silently threw the token back into the storage bag. Now was not the time to deal with the dark iron. A wave of wind blades shot out, and a green light with raging flames flashed past. With a series of dang-dang sounds, the wind blades that were hit turned into evil spirits and were blown away by the yin wind. Yu Qianqiu kept the green fire flying sword. He was confident. Since the green fire flying sword could restrain the wind blades, it would be easy. In the blink of an eye, dozens of green fire flying swords circled around him. Yu Qianqiu turned around and saw a wave of wind blades coming at him. The green fire flying sword quickly flashed out dozens of them and broke the oncoming wind blades. As for the others, as long as they did not hurt his body, he would let them fly away. Seeing that the attack was effective, Yu Qianqiu immediately increased his speed. The dozens of green fire flying swords opened a path in front of him. Zhang Ling and Fu, on the other hand, felt their way in the dark. Because the two of them were ghost cultivators, the darkness did not affect them. In addition, ghost cultivators were not afraid of the yin wind. They were only afraid of the evil spirits. Originally, the evil spirits had no effect on ghost cultivators of the netherworld. However, the two of them were not real ghost cultivators of the netherworld. They had been in the mortal world for too long. Their bodies had accumulated a lot of human qi. Once they came into contact with the evil spirits, their souls might scatter. Cultivators like Yen Tua originally had a mortal body, so they naturally had more human qi. However, once they encountered the evil spirits, they would naturally end up in a miserable state. They had not seen Yu Qianqiu yet. The two of them were a little anxious. While communicating with each other, they kept avoiding the topic that Yu Qianqiu might have already met with misfortune. At this moment, the two of them suddenly exclaimed in unison. The two of them could see in the dark. They saw a few broken pieces in front of them being blown by the wind. When they rolled to their feet, the two of them stepped on a piece at the same time and picked it up to take a look. They saw that it was a piece of dark steel. The cross-section was neatly cut, and there were spots that were eroded by the evil spirits. It is beyond our expectation. It seems that Mr. has already reached there. Fu Zhe transmitted his voice. Zhang Ling nodded and transmitted his voice. Let's go. Let's go take a look and see if we can catch up. The two of them quickly ran forward. Originally, the two of them could fly, but flying consumed too much vitality of ghost cultivators. They were afraid that they would not have enough vitality to support the protective gang chi to return. It was the same with teleportation. Besides, when teleportation was used, they could not teleport with the protective gang chi. After a period of time, the two of them reached the turning point. The clashing sound of wind blades in front of them stopped them in their tracks. Chapter 349. Yu Qianqiu was nowhere to be seen. The two of them looked at each other speechlessly. There was only one reason for this. Yu Qianqiu had already gone in. Whether he was dead or alive was unknown. However, the two of them did not dare to advance any further. Yu Qianqiu had the green fire to restrain the black fiend, and unknowingly they had already walked very far. Although the two ghost generals had high cultivation, they had already expended a large amount of vital chi to reach this point. If they continued to advance, they would expend too much vital chi, and they would really not be able to return. What's more, the black fiend here had already erupted in the form of wind blades. Ordinary treasures in the mortal world would not be able to withstand it at all and would instead be destroyed by it. The most terrifying thing was that the black demon wind blades could break through the protective upstanding chi. How could the two ghost generals make it through if ordinary mortal treasures and protective upstanding chi could not block it? At this place, only soul formation stage and ghost sage stage experts could use their tyrannical cultivation to force their way through. Mister, you are indeed the disciple of the disciplinary envoy. You even dare to barge into such a place. Fu Zhe exclaimed. Zhang Ling remained silent for a while before replying. It's impossible for us to barge into this place and we shouldn't stay here for long either. It's better to return and report to Madam. The two ghost generals were worried that something bad had happened to Yu Qianqiu, but neither of them mentioned it. They nodded at each other and quickly retreated the way they came. Inside, Yu Qianqiu was very busy. He was not worried anymore. He jogged all the way with the green fire flying sword circling around him to open a path. He was not afraid of the baleful wind blades. The Guiyuan sword technique that he cultivated allowed him to control multiple swords at the same time, which allowed him to deal with the situation with ease. Streaks of azure light moved as fast as lightning and protected him along the way. Yu Qianqiu became excited and even felt that this was a good place to cultivate the sword technique of Guiyuan. He was considering whether or not he should bring his two disciples here to cultivate in the future. However, he temporarily rejected the idea right after. Coming here to cultivate the origin convergence sword technique probably wouldn't do without the protection of azure fire. Little sister, go ahead boldly. Move forward. Don't look back. While Zhang Xian was singing along the way, his face suddenly warped in shock. The blue fire attribute energy in his body was running out. Damn it. He was overjoyed. He had to return and replenish his blue fire elemental essence. Yu Qianqiu immediately looked around and finally found a crack in the stone wall. He took out a silver ball and stuck it inside. Who would have thought that as soon as his hand left the ball, spots would quickly appear on the silver ball, as if it was being corroded by something unknown. Not long after, the silver ball had melted and disappeared. Yu Qianqiu frowned. With a wave of his hand, he summoned a flying sword made of green flames and stabbed it into the wall. With a turn of the sword, he pulled it out and a hole appeared in the wall. Once again he took out a silver ball and stuffed it into the hole. Then he used his palm to rub it with all his might. The nether iron wall instantly melted and sealed the hole. He heaved a sigh of relief when he sensed that the silver ball was safe and sound. Then he disappeared along with the group of flying swords. After appearing briefly in Utopia, he immediately appeared next to the azure flames burning beneath Twilight Valley and jumped into the sea of flames to absorb them. It had been a day since Zhang Ling and Fu Zhe had left the cave. The moment they emerged, they flew to the cliff on the other side. Everyone looked at the entrance of the cave. After confirming that Yu Qianqiu had not followed them out, they turned to the two generals in shock. Zhang Ling cupped his fists at Yu Ji and said, "Madam, the two of us were still a step too late." What? Yu Ji in purple dress cried out at the same time. The others were also dumbfounded. "Madam, don't misunderstand." Zhang Ling explained, "When the two of us reached the end of the 9 nether second fold, we found that Mr. had already entered the 3rd fold. However, our cultivation was limited, so we didn't dare to chase after Mr., so we retreated and reported to Madam." Yuji looked at Fu Zhe and asked with lingering fear, "Is that so?" "That should be the case. Madam, take a look." Fu Zhe took out the piece of profound iron and handed it to Yuji. "This should have been left behind by Sir when he was testing the power of the Black Fiend wind blades at the entrance of the Three Folds. If Sir was not confident in entering, he should have turned around and returned, and the two of us would have encountered Sir. However, when we arrived we did not see Sir. Sir must have been confident after testing, so he charged in." "What you say is reasonable." Yuji looked at the profound iron that had been corroded by the Black Fiend and nodded. Although they said this, everyone was still worried. No one in the entire Chilling Wind Valley had ever entered the Three Folds of the Nine Nether Cave. How could one pass through that place without reaching the Ghost Sage stage? Moreover, Yu Qianshou was only at the nascent soul stage. The difference was truly too great. Purple Dress sighed with relief. She did not know much about the Nine Nether Cave. Hearing that Yu Qianshou was fine, there was nothing to worry about and they could just continue waiting. This was probably the so-called ignorant were fearless. Yu Qianshou was not in a hurry to return to the Nine Nether Cave. Instead, he rushed to Utopia and had a hearty meal with wine and meat. After eating, he wiped his mouth and returned to the passage to continue moving forward. Being in the cave, he could not calculate the time. He did not know how far he had walked. There was another turning intersection. In front of him, countless wind blades flew randomly and hit the turning wall. As there were too many wind blades, the collision between them caused some wind blades to not hit the wall and turn into Black Fiend. They changed their angle and flew towards this passage with the help of the wind. So that was it. Yu Qianshou found the origin of the wind blades in this passage, but the dense ones in front still needed to be verified. He raised his eyebrows. Relying on the blue fire flying sword's ability to restrain the wind blades, he barged in arrogantly. In the end, he did not stay for long before he obediently retreated. There were too many wind blades inside. Although Yu Qianshou could block them, he could only move forward slowly. If this continued, he would tire himself to death. He did not know when he would reach the end. His eyes flickered as he pondered for a moment. He turned around and walked to the nether metal wall. The blue fire on his fingers was suppressed into 5 sharp claws. He stabbed into the nether metal wall and dug out a large piece. He quickly used the blue fire to refine it into a V-shaped shield. If it were anyone else, they would not have the fire to refine artifacts. Even if they had fire, how could ordinary fire so easily refine the nether metal? It would probably be troublesome to dig out a large piece from the wall. Why didn't I think of this earlier? Hugging the shield, Yu Qianshou chuckled and hid behind it. Just as he turned around and entered another passageway, the shield in front of him immediately trembled violently. Yu Qianshou trembled non-stop as he held onto the shield. Without hesitation, he covered the front of the nether metal shield with a meter-thick V-shaped blue fire. The effect was very good, but the consumption of the blue fire was too high. However, with the blue fire blocking the Black Fiend wind blades as a buffer, he immediately felt much better. After walking for a short distance, he realized that he could not see the path in front of him. Thus, he pressed the blue fire claw on his 5 fingers. With a few schwa-schwa sounds, a dozen irregular holes immediately appeared on the shield, allowing him to see the path. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.